3.
Get
Recording.
get up on it.
All right. Ready to roll?
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, dog.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Straight Chilling. Each week, we watch and review a horror film for your entertainment. You can send all questions and comments to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to keep chilling.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killin'. 5 cold feelings on the mic, got you reelin'. 5-star ratings from the floor to the ceiling. If you get your 1 star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ, all the 1s and 2s. By the name El Sabah, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all the way too. And prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' crew.
What up, nerds? Welcome to another king-like episode of Straight Chilling. My name's Bob, and I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 240, recorded on Monday, November 11, 2019. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Dr. Sleep. Before we get into the review, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from just outside Chicago, Randy Gandy G. Lander.
How do? My shit's frozen.
Your shit? Like your,
My shit,
your
like
poop?
my whole world's fucking ice tundra right now, buddy.
Oh.
Arctic blast. It ain't just a high sea. My digits are falling off. They're turning black and falling off.
That's a bummer. Hold on
Yeah.
to your pecker there. Don't want to
I'm
lose
holding
that one.
on, buddy. Like with whatever fingers I got left, believe me.
Good. Next up, calling in from Southern Korea, we got our boy Soju. What's up?
What up? It's your boy, Dr. Sleep Stains, here to inspect all your frozen digits and lumps if possible.
We're just going with the title of the movie reviewing stands now,
Getting
right?
real lazy. Real lazy.
Oh, and this is what's up? It's your boy, a werewolf in London Stains.
Hey, you know,
It's your boy, Ghost Stains.
we do a lot of shows, okay? A man can only have so many names.
It's your boy, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying, etc., Stains.
I want to give a shout out to Tammy. I was hanging out with her earlier today. She said you should use puka stains. Like, why haven't you used your boy puka stains?
Why would I?
Like puka shell necklace, you know?
Oh.
Back in the day. you used
That
to
was
sport
your
that.
look, buddy. Let's not
Don't
feign
act
ignorance
like you
about
don't
that.
know.
You gotta own your puka
Oh.
heritage.
Yeah, last year-
Actually, you're non-puka heritage.
Last year when I was 19, right, boys?
Yeah, if you were wearing puka shells last year and you were 19 years old, you would have been an outcast amongst your age.
Well, you
Just so
know.
you know.
Last but not least on the show, we got a first timer here. Everybody give a big warm welcome to our boy Corey. What's up, man?
Hey guys, how's it going?
What up, Corey?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Welcome
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
shit show, Corey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You know that shell necklace thing, I relate a little too well.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
That was a legitimate thing
that
in
was
culture
back
for
in the
a
day.
while.
I know. I'm surprised she.
That
I
was-
don't think I knew Tammy back then. I'm surprised she knew about that.
Look, word gets around.
She's seen pictures,
Oh yeah, back then,
Look,
last
nude
year,
or otherwise.
when I was 19.
The 2000s white boy culture that was puka shells.
Good gracious. Thanks for joining us, Corey, man. It's good to have you on the show. For those of you who don't know anything about Corey, he's from Jacksonville, Florida. Met him at our first live show. It's the first time I think I ever actually met you in person. We were showing Return of the Living Dead. You came up, played some trivia. Come to find out, you're a big old nerd in your own right, and you're also a dope photographer, man.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate being here. I love doing film review, and you guys specifically have got me back into the horror genre.
Wow.
Whoa,
Look at
changing
that.
lives
Changing-
over here.
Changing lives.
Changing lives.
For the worst.
Yeah,
For the
typically
worst.
for the worst, but sometimes for the neutral.
Yeah, but for all your photographic needs, shout out to Corey. Get in touch with him. He's your guy. He's our guy. If you've
Do
seen
we-
any of our photos from our live shows, that's him. He's the guy.
Yeah.
Shit looks good. He knows
Good
what he's
job,
doing.
buddy.
All the time, every
What-
time.
Yeah.
What's your contact point, bud?
Yeah. Where can people find you?
We're telling
so
people to
you-
contact you and not. Was it?
Sure.
Basically, if you just search the letters KTORJ It's going to pull up on Instagram, Facebook, and my website. It's K Torgeson Photography.
All right.
Across all those platforms.
All right,
Can we
give
get
you
your home
that
address?
follow real quick. Yeah, that what's
Don't
that?
you-
That's not gonna-
what's that social? guy?
That.
Yeah, where do you live? We want to
Yeah.
know where you live.
So
No.
you search KTORG.
So now KTORG, that's like some sort of acronym for something sexual and deviant, I assume.
Absolutely.
All right.
Hashtag facts. Let's go ahead and get into a little bit of housekeeping this evening. So just another reminder, we got our December poll pick posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we talk about in December. The theme for the movies are just movies that we missed in 2019. There's been a ton of stuff that came out this year. We can't possibly cover it all. So you can vote between Parasite, Ready or Not, or Daniel Isn't Real. I think Parasite's still winning. You got a couple weeks left to vote. You got till the end of the month.
You don't know how those numbers are looking, Bob?
I don't know, man. Parasite, I'm quite sure, is winning, and then I think it's Ready or Not, and Daniel is Real is last.
You're supposed to be the one that does the
Okay.
homework, Bob.
Last time I didn't look today, so it could have changed today. I think I looked yesterday.
Yeah, it's going to be Parasite.
Yeah, most
I
likely.
just had to make sure I voted for that one.
Let me go ahead and vote real quick.
You going with
Voting
the
in real
winner?
time. Look at
Corey
that.
doesn't fuck around with losers, man.
Ain't
Going with
fucking
the winner.
around.
We only just got that. Like
Parasite?
Parasite at Sunray? Yeah, they only just got that really late.
Yeah. It's getting like a limited release. I think by the time we cover it, hopefully it'll be like at least on VOD, so everybody can check it out. But we'll see. Assuming that we do cover it, because hey, month isn't over. Don't want to count those.
It's not
Hey,
over yet.
It's not. In other glorious Patreon news, we have two brand new Patreon supporters we got to give mad shouts outs to. Big thanks to Vince K and Josh T for choosing to support us on Patreon. We sincerely appreciate it, guys.
Time for
And
a
of course-
salute.
Of course, we got to give you the straight chilling salute.
Dude, I got
Here's to you guys. You got a double fist.
I hope that your contribution was worth us telling you to slap our ass.
Dude, slap my ass, please.
Slap
God
his
bless
ass.
you, Josh and Victor. Josh and Victor,
Slap.
correct? I'm not fucking that up, am I?
Vince.
Vince, God damn it.
Yeah.
Randy.
You did fuck it up. You did fuck it up.
All right, slap my own ass right now.
Somebody.
Slapping my own ass.
Randy's getting greedy. Juice, you have a bunch of news, right, regarding YouTube, Twitch, and some other stuff.
Yep, let's do some housekeeping. First off, this is a new movie that we are covering today, Dr. Sleep. So, for the YouTube exclusive, here's the poster that will be given away. There it is.
I might need to get one of those.
Yeah, we
I don't
got
know what I'm
a
gonna do with that shit,
poster giveaway, Korean poster giveaway. So once this episode is posted up on YouTube, once the show goes live, find the behind the scenes video. You'll see our beautiful faces. And if you like, give us a comment on there. You will be entered to win this poster. Next week, I will announce the winner and ship it off to you so you can get that free of charge. All it costs you is one YouTube comment. Ooh, Dr. Sleep. One more time for the YouTubes. Also,
Special consideration for if you compliment us, of course.
yeah, maybe get a little
Sweeten the
something,
pot.
something extra. Yeah.
We're slaves for devotion around here.
Also, last week we gave a little teaser trailer for something that's coming in December. So we're going to give a little more info on that. We said that starting in December, the first week, actually, we're going to be starting a really big event. Actually, the biggest event we've ever tried to pull off. So fingers crossed. But we are coming up on the end of the decade. And if you listen to our 200th episode, you'll know this is my favorite horror decade so far. So I'm very excited. And we are trying to decide what possibly is some of the best horror films of the decade. We have compiled a list of over 100 films, and we want you guys to help us out. So on our socials, Twitter's going to be a big one. Instagram's going to be a big one. Also, definitely check in at straightchillingpodcast.com, where a lot of this is going to be hosted. You will be able to participate with us in determining these top movies of the decade. So yeah, starting in December, we're going to have weekly events where you can tune in. We're going to be talking about it on the show throughout the rest of the year and into next year. So it's going to be a big thing that's going on for a while. So definitely, if you haven't subscribed to our socials, check in on that and you will be able to participate with us very shortly.
You big
True
flirt.
that.
Yeah, I'm excited. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. It's going to be super, super interactive. So we want to get as many people in on this as possible. The more, the merrier. I think it's going to spark some pretty fantastic conversation. And it's like having a look back at it as we've been compiling this list. There's been so much stuff, like really, really good
I
stuff.
think like really big and influential for like heading into
Yeah.
the future. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I concur. More to come on that.
Yes.
Is that it? I think that's all we have. No new Twitch news, Juice?
No, we're good. Same old. Make sure you
All right.
subscribe to us on YouTube for all of our content, which includes some horror gaming as well, if that's what you're into. That's what you're into.
Yeah. Cool. Let's go ahead and talk about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randy, what you been watching?
Let's see. So primarily I've been watching two things. There's one thing I've been watching and one thing that I watched, and I feel like I have to comment upon. I'll start with that. I watched a show that is now on Netflix, I believe it was Netflix, called Dragula. And I know I sent you guys some screenshots of this particular show, which was news to me. It's not something I was familiar with. In this household, RuPaul is king, and or queen, rather. And we, Becky loves that shit, and I enjoy it quite a bit, too. It's like a little, like, you know, it's that silly, like, ETE entertainment shit. But it's fun, you know, everybody's, like, crazy witty, so I enjoy it. But then I found out about this show, which is essentially RuPaul's Drag Race, but with a horror movie bent. And all of the queens on this show are extremely like gothed out hard in some capacity. And it's the Boulet brothers, I believe, or the name of the two queens that run it and are like sort of like the heads of the operation. And it is the one episode I watched was absolutely insane to me. And it was like, if anybody's seen RuPaul's Drag Race, I don't know guys if you guys have, it's a competition where they create their own look or whatever, these several queens, and then they'll do a runway walk, and then they get judged based on their performances and so forth. And then there's backstage drama bullshit, which is the part I always tune out.
Don't lie.
There's parts of it that's funny, but for the most part, it is not what I'm there for. I like it's a lot of creative shit going on, and this show is no different, except it's like crazy horror stuff, which is fucking fabulous to me. I enjoy that quite a bit. So, but the thing is, this show is on a much, much skinnier budget than a fucking VH1 show or whatever RuPaul's on. And yeah, it shows. It's apparently started as a YouTube show. The first season was all on YouTube, so that tells you kind of where they're coming from. They still have like a $10,000 like grand prize and shit, but they're working on a shoestring motherfucking budget, and it shows. But all that said, some of these fucking costumes are great. Like some of these looks like they did a whole this whole first episode I saw was everybody had to create their own Cinnabite and come out dressed as their own Cinnabite.
Holy shit!
Yeah, based on their own fucking like whatever their idea of their drag personalities, like vice, because you know the Cinnabites are about their vices. And
so is there like a dildo face that came out, or
no? There was one person who had like, you know, they had like crazy fucking special effects. So one girl had her whole like back like exposed, her spine, and it looked like legit.
Damn.
Like it was fucking cool. I wish I could describe it more. But then shit gets real weird at the end when the bottom three people are chosen, like the people who did the worst, and you have to like, rather than vote somebody out, they put them through a physical challenge. Which you might think based on Survivor or something might be, oh, you got to, you know, drop this amount of blue liquid into a bubble or whatever the fuck. But this show, they're sticking fucking needles through their arms and shit. And I'm not talking about just like hypodermic small needles. I'm talking like fucking like meat flavor injection needles going through their arms. Like,
Why?
Like, it was fear factor. I don't know. And like the whole thing is like, well, we'll see how you react to it. And if we think you're worthy of sticking around, then you'll stick around.
What?
So, like, there's no voting. There's no nothing. It's just entirely based on what the Boulet brothers like. Well, you know what? You took the pain real good. And these people, there's no way that $10,000 is worth what they're going through, but they're
No.
fucking doing it.
Yeah.
That
They're doing
sounds
it out of like love for the
insane.
motherfucking games. You gotta give it up.
Is
for it.
this to announce like a Marilyn Manson concert?
Yeah.
I mean, you would think, and there's still a lot of season left, so we'll see. I think there's 2
More to
seasons
come.
on Netflix, and as far as I know, there's more to come. It's a little draggy, and it's a little, it's got amateur parts of it. It's slapped together by people who are just really interested in the drag aspect. But all that said, I had a great time fucking watching it. If I can just like roll right through the drama shit, I have a great time with it. And like the fear factor thing, I never really got on board until it was for this purpose. It's just so fucking weird that they chose to like eliminate their people that way. So all that's done. Dragula, watch it. Boulay Brothers. Yeah, I don't think they could afford that song for the intro. It's very metally, but it's not name brand metal. It's off brand.
Can't afford the zombie.
And then on the complete opposite end of the fucking entertainment spectrum, I finally started watching Succession on HBO. Has anybody watched that yet?
Oh yeah,
Bob,
it's
you
good.
been watching it? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. That's a show that really, really solidifies reasons why I have a bias against rich people. It's very, very troubling.
Why do you hate us, Randy?
Okay.
One
All right, you're
thing
all right.
over here.
You may be American and Korea rich, but that shit doesn't count. We're talking about 1%ers over in this motherfucker, and that show. It's so smart. Brian Cox is so fun to watch do anything, and all the other cast, like the whole other cast, is also great. Like everybody in that show kicks ass at their job, and it's just really hard to watch because everybody's just such a rat bastard. For those who don't know, it's about like Sinclair Media Group type of like Fox News sort of like tycoon, titan of industry, like the richest man in America sort of thing. And he's just a bastard, and his kids was partially like they're dependent on him financially, and they work for him or they don't or whatever. But they're all like angling to get his seat at the end of his tenure, and he decides not to retire, and it's a whole big thing. Anyway, it's good. It's a fucking good show. I'm almost done with season 1. I'm excited to see season 2. Which is it still in process, Bob, or is season 2 also?
No,
complete?
season 2 is wrapped.
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't even know that season 2 had come out, so I'm so
Mhm.
glad to be able to shotgun through these and not have to wait a week and a week.
Yeah,
So
it's
those
good.
have been that's pretty much it. I enjoyed both of those, and they couldn't be fucking more different. I'll tell you.
Cool. Juice, what you been watching?
I watched a Korean film this week. I'm trying to watch more and more Korean cinema, especially if we're going to be covering Parasite. But just in general, let's see,
It's
in Korean, yeah, in Korean it's called Balse, but in English it's House of Hummingbird.
Ballsy.
Yeah. And it's one of the reasons I want to watch this movie is it was by a female director, which is like I've seen, I think almost every Korean film I've seen up to this point is a male director. So I want to check out this movie, and it essentially is kind of her life growing up as a Korean like girl in the 90s.
The director?
And yeah, kind of like her kind of point of view, I guess. And it was like super interesting, like we grew up in the 90s in the States, and like you never really think like, oh, what's going on like in the rest of the world, like so it was kind of interesting. Yeah, point of view, especially from a woman. It's not like particularly horror, but I guess like some of like the real like world like kind of terrifying aspects of that is I guess being a woman in Korea in the 90s. I don't know. So yeah, it was interesting, really interesting. It was a good movie. It was like really sad but beautifully shot movie. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. On the opposite end, kind of like Randy, Jim G Baby posted a new Nardwar interview where it's Nardwar and Tyler the Creator, and I love that shit. One, because he posted because I've mentioned like watching Nardwar videos before. But I also just really enjoy Tyler the Creator. I think since he's posted, I've probably watched it like 3 or 4 times. It's about 20 minutes long.
Damn.
Dude, I like one Nardwar is just like he does great interviews. He's a super interesting guy. And so when he does artists I particularly like, I like to watch them. But I also just really enjoy Tyler the Creator. He's also a really unique guy himself. And they work like really well together. They've done actually a couple of interviews before together, but this is the newest one. It was good. I really enjoyed it. And I started watching, I haven't finished it yet, but that Tall Grass, what is it? Into the Tall Grass or something?
In the Tall Grass.
In the Tall Grass, yeah. It was pretty good so far. I kind of liked what I saw. I'm digging that they're making these kind of like little Stephen King vignette like type stories like into these movies, and doing pretty well with these isolated like locations and kind of stuff like that.
Man. The kids who grew up on fucking Stephen King are just running horror right now.
yeah, apparently. So
it's crazy.
I look forward to finishing it, but I was intrigued and like what I saw so far. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Corey, what you been watching, man?
All right, so I started my Halloween really late and had to catch up on a few popular titles I haven't seen yet. I have watched The Conjuring for the first time, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Candyman all the way through. Candyman 1 all the way through for the first time.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. Only seen 3 because they constantly replayed it on the Sci-Fi Channel as a kid. Season 6 of BoJack Horseman.
Oh,
and
yes.
Then, all of seasons 1 through 5 again. And French horror series Marianne, which has been very enjoyable so far. Being on this podcast, I would definitely give it a recommend. It's not normal horror. It's very interruptive. Like there's not a lot of instances where something will lead into something scary happening. There'll just be people chilling on a beach and then someone goes home and someone's dead. And much like the character, you're just watching this like, what? So it's really interesting because it's not all dark, and there's a lot that just isn't getting explained. So you are left in the dark as much as the lead character. So cool, give it a watch.
All right.
Sweet.
Is that just one season?
Right now, yes.
Okay.
I think it's already slated for a second season.
Cool. Nice. I gotta check that out, man. I heard a lot of good stuff about that. I revisited Ringu, the Japanese horror movie. Which
you got that box set, Bob. You got to put it to work.
Yeah.
I can put it to work. Yeah, I got to play the shit out of that box set. I hadn't seen it in quite some time. It's good, which is probably pretty fucking obvious. It's got some like plot issues that I didn't realize the first time I had seen it. Which I guess I'll avoid talking about because it's kind of spoiler territory. But
in fairness, you were what, like fucking 12 when you saw this originally?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it's pretty spooky. It's pretty spooky. I think they may have like cleared a lot of that up actually in the American remake. But it doesn't. It definitely, the original has a certain charm for sure that the American remake lacks because it's like one of those gray blue remakes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's got that like.
I know.
Oh, the color grading remakes is that was a blight. So I say that is a blight to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, the original has this like a certain like warmth and charm that the remake likes, but I don't know. They kind of, I guess, they both do certain things better than the other. So I don't know. I think they're kind of both worth watching. I haven't seen the sequels yet. I've never seen them before actually, so I'm gonna get into those here before too long. I also watched
eventually, but a few more box sets to buy before then.
I got a lot of stuff to watch.
I
gotta put in some new walls made of fucking DVD cases first.
Something like that. I watched season 2 of this Netflix original series. It's called The End of the Fucking World. It's been like 2 years since the first season came out. And it's like, I think each season is about 8 episodes long, and they're like 20-minute episodes. So it doesn't take too long to get through them all. It's about these kids. I guess they're like early 20s, and they're like psychopaths, basically. They just don't feel anything. They come across one another in the first season, and they kind of have like this Bonnie and Clyde sort of dynamic between the two of them. And the second season starts off with them apart, and like it takes a pretty good while for them to get back together. And when they do, they're not really like on the same page like they were in the first season, which is like sort of frustrating to see. It's still like a good time, and I would recommend watching it, but it lacks the charm of the first season in that these two characters just like getting together and kicking ass is not there. And that's kind of the best part of the first season. I don't know why they made that fucking decision, but still, not. It's. I think it's worth your time if you like the first season. If you have seen that and you liked it, check the second one out. Also, Castle Rock season 2. I think it's like halfway through now. What they've been doing is they release a new episode every Wednesday. I was not a big fan of the first season. I didn't even finish it. I think I probably got about halfway through the first season and I was really, really bored. So I didn't finish it. I started watching season 2 based on Anthony's recommendation. Who was just on our podcast and he was talking about it. Lizzie Kaplan plays what's her face from Misery, Kathy Bates' character from Misery.
Oh yeah.
Plays oh god.
Yeah, I know. Blanking. Anyway, plays like a younger version of Kathy Bates' character from Misery in season 2 of Castle Rock, and she just like lays waste to that role. It is a blast to watch, and it seems season 2 seems like way more.
Annie Wilkes.
Thank you, Annie Wilkes. Yeah, season 2 seems like way more tightly written. It's not all over the place. Yeah, season 1 of Castle Rock kind of feels like it's got like American Horror Story syndrome, where they start in a place and then it just branches off and branches off and branches off, and it's like very unfocused. And after a while, nothing matters anymore. Whereas season 2 is not like that. It's very much like about Annie Wilkes. So I recommend checking that out, even if you didn't like the first season. The second season is much better, in my opinion. That's what I've been watching. Let's get into the main event. We're talking about Dr. Sleep tonight. Let's kick it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
All right, this is the latest and greatest from Mike Flanagan. You may recall he has previously directed Gerald's Game, The Haunting of Hill House, Hush, Oculus, one or two other movies. The plot synopsis is as follows. Years following the events of The Shining, a now adult Dan Torrance must protect a young girl with similar powers from a cult known as the True Knot, who prey on children with powers to remain immortal. Of course, we got our boy Ewan McGregor up in here.
Our boy.
Our Lord and Savior.
Our
Someone's
boy.
boy.
Young Obi-Wan.
Sorry. Shaboy.
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 You got your
Yeah.
young Obi-Wans, you got your old Dan Torrances, you got it all.
All of it. It's all there. Would you guys recommend people check this movie out in the theater? Randy?
Yeah. I mean, I saw this in whatever the fucking Regal Cinemas version of IMAX is, and I would say it was worth it for sure. I enjoyed, like, yeah. Which I didn't know that I bought that ticket at first, and then I saw it was fucking like whatever, $100 or whatever it was, and it was kind of blown the fuck away. And then I was like, oh, I guess okay. Well, this is the time I want, so I'm fucked. But it was worth it. I enjoyed seeing it in all of its full def splendor. It was worth it.
You heard it here, folks. Randy says spend $100 on this movie.
Whoa, yeah.
I got a golden ticket.
That's
Do it.
just like 2 weeks worth of Bob's DVDs.
Yeah, okay. Justin, would you recommend people check this out?
No, actually, I'm gonna give a no.
Oh shit!
I don't think this movie is necessary to see in the theater. It's okay. I was pretty let down and disappointed, honestly, going to the theater to see it. It's long as shit. So no, not particularly.
All right, Corey, what about you?
So if you are like an insane fan of The Shining, if you love everything about it, like hardcore film person, probably not. It is a very weak sequel to The Shining, but if you have no clue what The Shining is about, if you've never seen it, I think it's a very fun movie. So I think it depends on where you come from. But yeah, go see it. Form your own opinion.
Facts. Yeah, I recommend people check it out. I think it's worth seeing in the movie theater. I would say even if you do like The Shining, I think there's some stuff that I think is worth. It would tickle your fancy.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
I can't believe the way this is shaping up. I was all prepared to be the detractor and have
Really?
have my little brain speech ready to roll.
You can still be a detractor, Randy.
Yeah, but
it
sounds
like be devil's advocate.
Well, no, that's the thing is I think that based on what I'm hearing right now, I think that I definitely have a higher opinion than some people sitting in this panel right now.
Probably more than
Speak
me.
your mind.
So I'm going to have to fucking change gears here a little bit and play Peacekeeper.
We'll see. Oh, middleman Randy. Yeah, so that's an overall light recommend, I guess.
Riding that fence, Randy.
Right.
It feels good.
I bet it does, brother.
Oh,
Damn.
yeah, man.
All right. Well, I'm going to drop that spoiler warning, and we'll get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler
Yeah.
warning.
It's fucking with me.
Spoiler warning.
There it
There it
is.
is.
I got
Oh,
slows.
Red
I got the
Stag Randy
slows
over
here.
You opened another bottle of Red Stag, Randy? No, put the bottle down, Randy. God, no.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
We've moved on to
Putting it
Malort.
in his butt. Oh, yeah.
Whoa, Bob.
I tried Malort for the first time. That shit tastes like fucking cologne.
You were
It's
saying
terrible.
last week.
I think you
Did I say that? Okay,
Yeah, you
well,
did.
I'm still not over it, I guess.
You were all hyped up on that Red Stag, I think, so
Oh.
don't remember. All right. So we're talking about some Dr. Sleep. Have any of you guys read the book? I have not, which is probably
No.
not a surprise
Who
to hear.
reads?
I
Wow.
don't know, some people. Some nerds.
What
Even
do I
Nicole,
what do I got to do with
are
words
like-
on a page and shit? What
are like-
what do I care about that?
Our Stephen King guru, Nicole, who's been on here several
Right.
times, she was even saying that she hasn't read the book, which
Yeah.
surprised me quite a bit. So
I think
was
Whoa,
like,
her
whoa,
exact
on
quote-
blast, whoa.
I
not,
think her
not
exact
really.
quote was like, she said, like, fuck that pussy shit or something like that.
Oh, really? I don't know if
no,
that's
she
what she said.
She did not say that.
That is
So you're saying
Pitch
she didn't
perfect,
take a shining
Nicole.
to it.
Oh,
Oh!
I like what you did.
someone
she
bringing
did
the
not.
puns to the table.
Yeah, so we're let's go ahead and I guess kind of get into what this movie is. So it kind of picks off shortly after the events of the original movie, The Shining. So we've got like a young Danny Torrance, and he's living with his mother Wendy Torrance in like a small apartment, and they're just kind of getting by without old Jack because he's a fucking popsicle somewhere.
Yeah.
He's
And,
still out there.
we kind of to this day shivering. We kind of get a sense of like how Danny is coping with his new abilities, his newfound abilities, the shining. He's got a shine to him, and Dick Halloran sort of like comes to him, and he's like in ghost form. He's kind of like his shaman in a way, like guiding
He's
him through
he's Yoda
his
ghost.
powers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Yoda Halloran.
They force ghosts. in this movie.
Yoda.
They do, yeah. And yeah, we kind of see the ghosts that inhabited the Overlook Hotel. They're sort of like kind of following Danny Torrance, and Dick Halloran shows him how to like compartmentalize them and like put them in little boxes in his mind, which is confusing. We can get into some of that. But then Danny Torrance, he grows up, he becomes Dan Torrance now, played by
Ooh.
Ewan McGregor.
Dan the man.
Fucking Dan.
Got no time for second syllables anymore.
Nah, girl. And we see that he has become an alcoholic like his father was. He's sort of he's kind of using that to maybe numb his shining a little bit. And he comes in contact through brainwaves with this young girl named Abra, who also has the shine, and she's like crazy powerful. And they gotta battle this like wild band of soul-sucking vampire type people called the True Knot or the Stink Knot or
I
whatever.
actually didn't know that was what they were called at all.
Neither
I
did
never
I.
heard that.
They mentioned it, I think, once, very quickly when we
Okay.
first are
I
introduced.
guess.
to
I mean,
them.
it's not really important except to book readers, I suppose. And what,
Right.
what do we give a shit about
Yeah.
that?
Nerds.
So that's kind of like the rough setup. Without getting into like every single plot point here, there is a ton of story. It's like way too much story to fit into one movie, I think, which is a bit problematic. We can get into that as well.
Was there? Because for a 2.5-hour movie, I was like, why is this 2.5? I didn't feel that the length was justified by any means. Did anybody else feel like, oh man, I just felt like there could have been so much more to this story?
I've heard you complain about the length, and to me, like, I think it could stand to have been trimmed a little bit maybe, but it didn't bother me, and like I wasn't really thinking about that at all. I was just traveling along with the story.
Oof.
I'm kind of there with Juice on that. What confuses me the most is how this movie had more characters and more character development than The Shining. And The Shining just had a lot of pretty scenes, and yet somehow that went by faster.
Yeah. And like
that movie does not go by faster to me. Like The Shining, the original, it's a slow pace, but it's paced slow, and you feel the pace. It's intentional, and it's felt you feel it in its intentionality. This movie is just a faster kind of story, so it seems like more things are happening. But yeah, like to me, that's what kept it. That's what kept me like engaged with it, because this movie isn't as strong as The Shining. Let's just put that out there. I think we're all going to agree on that.
No, dog.
Let's not even try to compare there.
But we're definitely going to compare the two. But, I don't know. To me, this is like taking this as a different kind of movie, which it is. It traveled at a different pace, and it just wasn't the same thing. And for me, I was enjoying it for what it is, so it didn't really feel that long to me.
I will legit say that if we had not been covering this for the podcast, and even knowing that we were covering this for the podcast, I was almost prepared to just be like, I walked out. Like a couple times, Jesus. I was just like, I want to leave this movie. I want to leave it. Like more than once. There was
your beer flat?
2 yeah. Oh, the beer was terrible. Oh, I got a
flat beer.
No, I'm not Bob. I have some integrity.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we're about to see that integrity on full display.
Right now, it happened at least 2 or 3 times. I was like, I'm prepared to tell the guys that I just left this movie because I was not impressed with this film, and the length hurt it even more. It wasn't just the fact that it was long that made me want to leave. I just was so disinterested. This movie, to me, it felt like a made-for-TV movie where they spent all their money
getting... not seen Stephen King's The Shining.
Dude, I mean, I've heard people talk about it and like how the bushes come alive and stuff like that. And some of the effects in this movie made me think of y'all talking about that. Like the guys, like the bad people that we have or whatever in this movie, like their eyes like glow or whatever. I was like, this is
they shine.
Silly. Like it,
they do.
This movie like borderlines on like just like weird silliness that feels like a 90s made for TV movie, honestly.
I don't think it was quite that bad, man. It's definitely not as bad as like animated bushes or CGI bushes. But I do agree with you in like some of the aspects of the like Winnebago vampires being pretty kind of corny. Specifically, like they feed off of people's shine, or what they refer to as steam. And when they actually like eat your steam, it's like it looks like literal steam coming out of people's mouths that they're like inhaling, which I thought was pretty goofy.
And they like squeeze it out of them. They like push and like little steam comes out. And also the terminology, and I'm sure they're going to the book, so I'm not like necessarily knocking the movie, but even like the hokey corniness of this movie, just like, oh, with their eyes like glowing and the steam coming out, but just like this world is full of steam, or oh, we're losing steam. Like anytime they would talk about, I was like, I cannot take this movie seriously. It was so goofy to me.
No, I'm losing steam right now.
Like what's the difference between that and Shining? Like calling it Shining.
I don't know. Just the fact that you actually see like steam coming out of mouth.
I guess the way they talked about, like
whatever.
They were saying like the world is less steamy, and it just seems so silly. They did
in the world.
There's a conversation between the chick with the hat and like the crow guy, and he was like, "There's less steam in the world."
So here's my problem.
I was just like,
with the knots, the forget-me-nots or whatever they're called. So my problem is like that in general that they exist, because that gives the world of The Shining a villain, and that's not like, that's just to me not interesting as an accelerant for The Shining mythos. Like that's the thing I don't like. I think my biggest problem with this movie is the fact that it is a sequel to The Shining, and that's my whole problem. I assume that I have with it existing as a book in the first place. And I mean, I haven't read the original Shining either, so like I'm not there for Stephen King's version of The Shining. I can't speak to it, but I can speak to the original, which is my go-to answer for favorite horror movie of all time. So like I tried not to be sacrosanct about that, like because I mean, I had to try and enjoy this movie on other levels because like there was just never going to be a chance that this movie would live up to the original.
Yeah.
The same way that it's the same way I felt about like the Halloween remake. Like there's no way it's going to live up to the original. You have to take it on its own terms. And if you do that, maybe you'll have a good time. And the difference is that movie was very, very real to what made the originals good, in my opinion, or the original movie good, in that it's just a nameless figure chasing you, and there's not a lot of logic to it. But this movie takes a lot of the beautiful visuals of Kubrick and adds an X-Men story to it, and that's not additional to The Shining to me. Like if this movie existed, this movie rides on. It's like hitched its wagon to The Shining hard, like visually and obvious, like the story so hard. And I enjoy those moments because they're because of The Shining, not because of this movie.
Yeah.
And that's the issue, is this movie is standing on the shoulder of a giant. So if you take away that giant, it's gonna be lesser. It doesn't move as a vehicle on its own for me. However, that said, if I take it as like a fucking just a straightforward X-Men movie with some like interesting horror like choices, it's not so bad. There's literally a fucking Cerebro in this movie. I couldn't stop thinking about the X-Men.
Have you guys remember Near Dark? We did a show on Near Dark a little while back.
Yeah.
It made me think like, oh, Stephen King watched Near Dark, and then he's like, I'm gonna put some of that shit into this like weird sequel I'm gonna write for The Shining. This movie's like very bipolar in that it feels very much like two movies just sort of like mashed together. We got these Winnebago vampires, and then you've got like an actual sequel to The Shining. And they don't necessarily fit together very well. Maybe they do in the book pretty good.
They just needed to have a danger that can follow you outside of the Overlook, because within the world of the books, I know this much, in the book, the Overlook had been burnt down by the end of The Shining. So without that in play, King had to go to another source of danger to give some sort of thrill. Like otherwise he would like, you could have gone with ghost hunting ass Dan, but I mean, this way he's dragged back into it, which makes more sense, like narratively. But it just doesn't make sense to do that. He already did have
Ghost Hunting Dan, which was like the first 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
true. Like he kind of did
so
that.
They just ran over that story.
Yeah, if they could have, like, if that had been the epilogue of The Shining, I mean, I wouldn't have had a huge issue with it. But it's not additive. None of this really is additive, and it's impossible to separate the two. They're just, you can separate The Shining from Dr. Sleep, but you cannot separate Dr. Sleep from The Shining. You really like, and if you do, you have to be very intentional about it, and it's very distracting. So automatically, it's a lesser movie, even on its own terms.
It was too. Yeah, and I was trying. Oh, go ahead.
To agree with Rob with the two movie thing, one of the ways that I phrased it is this is very much its own movie until it hits you in the face with Wendy's back.
Right.
Because it's great, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm a Shining sequel. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. For a while, it's
thing.
like
I was trying
Logan.
to separate them. Like I was trying to be like, take it on its own terms and like, oh, this is what this movie. But it, like Randy said, it relies so heavily on like, oh, don't you want to see more of The Shining? Like, oh, don't you want to see some of this?
And the answer to that question
no.
is kind of yes.
Well,
but I just didn't want it in this form.
Yeah, kind of yes, but not in the sense to where, like you said, you have to add this whole. Like, I didn't like how they tried to tie the mythos of The Shining and how it worked to make the vampires work. That's what I felt cheapened it. Like, so I was trying to separate it, but then they were trying to go in and almost like retcon, like, okay, well, no, they're not necessarily ghosts. They're like these things that feed on your shine. And so
the ghosts themselves, that was a retcon. I think even in the books, like they're in the books, it's a haunted house and it's an isolation story about a drunk, who's haunted by real ghosts in the book, and then eventually like they claim him but he claims the hotel also. But in this story, they also because they're adapting, they're not just making a sequel to Stephen King's The Shining. They're making a sequel to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and they're bridging that gap as best they can because they know people are more familiar with the movie than they are the book, but they also know that they can't, like, this is Stephen King's Dr. Sleep is Stephen King's story again. He's not going to let him fuck him again because he sees The Shining as him getting fucked. So Flanagan, I'm like, had to convince him to let him make this movie, and also convince him to let him use Kubrick's imagery as a jumping off point. So they're trying to span, like, I don't know, 2 parallel universes and like pivot them into a single point, and it doesn't really work. And the more you think about it, the more of a headache it becomes. So they retcon a few things, and then they add a few things. But the thing is, the things they add just don't narratively do a whole lot for me, except make it more of an action adventure than it was a horror. So
Yeah,
I guess that's where I'm like,
I kind of like how they personify the hotel in the end of it. I think they probably put too fine a point on it, but they kind of make the hotel like a major fucking character. I mean, the hotel was like always a character, but like literally at one point, Abra says like the hotel has like possessed Dan Torrance. Yeah,
I didn't love
it's like
that.
actually inside of. No, it was kind of good.
Okay,
Well, see,
I like that. So one of the, going back to the first, Kubrick is a supernatural film, and then Flanagan is a superhuman film.
Yeah, that's true.
You just sort of assume that the hotel is haunted in Kubrick's film, and that's one of the just interesting bits in this film is it's like, no, the hotel did exist, it breathed, it was a thing. So I appreciate that part.
See, like
I'm not alone.
I like, here's the thing. I'm just conflicted about this because there's part of me that really loves it in a fan servicey, like, punch the air kind of way, and then there's part of me that's like, this feels also simultaneously like rich in love for the original and cheap in exploitation of the original. And that's the scene where Rose the Hat gets like her face ripped off by the Shining ghosts, and they're all there and they're all doing their Shining phrases, and it's like the greatest hits of the Shining all at once. And then they, like, I don't know, it was like, you knew that was coming, and there was part of me was like, okay, he's definitely going to unleash all his little brain traps, and all these ghosts are going to come out and save his ass, and then they're going to come after him or whatever, but first they're going to save his ass. That's what's going to happen. I knew that from the moment I saw all those fucking chained boxes, and it was just kind of telegraphed. And because this is a superhero movie, as you said, like, you could kind of see those strands more, as opposed to just watching a man slowly go mad in a fucking icy palace. So, like, to me, that it felt like they were exploiting the original as much as they were paying homage to it. And part of me just loved seeing it happen, but it's like, I love it on a music video level. I don't love it on a narrative level.
Yeah, they save most of that for the end, like the third act. As he's walking through the hotel and, quote, waking it up, it's very much playing the hits, like you said. Like, you get like the shots of the blood elevator.
The only thing that was missing was the fucking
typewriter. Right, yeah. And he goes to the bar. What did you guys think about that bar scene where he's talking to his fucking dad, who's like the new Lloyd? Yeah,
I was conflicted.
I thought it was pretty cool too.
I thought it was an interesting way to approach it.
In the same way that Randy said, like, even though I'm like dogging on this film, I like wanted to like it, and there were parts of it that I liked, but in the same way, parts that I hated. I like that, and this is part of what like I struggle with this film in my own way is, like, it wants to be its own thing, like the superhero thing, but then it's like, we have to include The Shining. And so, like, the idea of this character of Dan and how he's going to struggle with his alcoholism and how he uses it to kind of, like he says, like, know his father, and having that discussion is a cool dialogue, especially in a film where I thought a lot of like the story points and dialogue were pretty cheap, and there wasn't a lot of emotion, honestly, in a lot of it. And so here's this point where I thought, like, okay, from a narrative point, it's got a lot of emotion for our main character. But because it had to like tie itself to The Shining, and specifically the film where they have to get a guy who looks like Jack Nicholson, and it like cheapens it. It makes it feel plastic. It, like, I don't know, it took away from it. And because they're tying themselves so hard, because they're like trying to make this movie to get people who love The Shining into the seats, it, like, I could see the strings. Like, it felt cheap to me.
Well, that to me worked, though. Like, you have to, if you're gonna make it a Shining sequel, and Lord knows they are, it has to have Danny confronting his father, especially if his story is becoming an alcoholic, like being in danger of becoming the monster his father became. In the book, his father was co-opted. He was not as much of a monster. He was more sympathetic. But in this movie, or in the original Shining, he's not. He is. He might as well be like he is a ghost in the fucking Overlook. He might as well be on a lot of levels. That's kind of implied, and not getting into the woods there, but you're sitting there looking at. I like that they included him, and I like that it was kind of, to me, I expected him to come back. Obviously, I was like, well, they're going to have a Jack stand-in of some kind. He's going to come wheeling around the hall with his axe and start chasing Danny. But the fact that they made him more of an emotional contact, where he's having a conversation with his belated father, who like almost murdered him and his mom, and he's grappling with that emotional, like the crux of his personal story. I thought that was a little bit unexpected that they did that in such a way that they did, as opposed to making him more of a physical danger like he was in the original. They played the hits still, so yeah, I can see your point. And there's no way to, like, you're not going to get Jack Nicholson 1980 back, so their options are fucking Grand Moff Tarkin that shit, hint
Don't
at
do
it
that.
and not show him, which is
good at that now.
yeah. But I mean, it doesn't work for me. It just, to me, I think it's cheap, and it's starting to worry me because of the whole James Dean thing. But that's a whole other conversation.
So for this particular scene, if you want to talk about the time of the film, I feel like that whole conversation can be cut. It's powerful, it's good, but if you want
I
to
think it
have
could
a
be
shorter
trimmed.
film, it's not necessary.
Oh no, you
because
want to trim the whole thing?
Well, he fights with his father by fighting with himself, because he became his father. So when he goes to AA and does it for 8 years, and then decides to start communicating with his shine to other people, I feel like that's him fighting his father.
Yeah.
Because I thought when he walked in and saw that singular glass sitting on the table, that was a very powerful scene, because when you think about the realism of they shut the hotel down, no one would leave that there. That was waiting for him. And if they had not gone any further, it would just pull back everything that happened, because that's the moment where Jack lost it. So you could have just gone from there. Again, it's not bad, but if you really wanted to trim it, I feel like the whole thing could come out.
I think you could trim parts of it, but I really think that him confronting face to face his father was powerful in its own right, and I think it was good to have for my taste, like not just for on a fan service level either, like on a storytelling level. His story is, am I becoming my father? I'm like, an alcoholic is always an alcoholic. That's what they say in AA. You're never not an alcoholic. You're just in recovery, or you're not. So if he's in recovery but he's going through like the most stressful time of his life, grappling with the demons that caused his alcoholism in the first place, including his actual fucking biological dad, a face-to-face confrontation, I mean, makes perfect sense. The fact that you don't have Jack Nicholson to kick around for it is a real shame, because God knows he is The Shining as far as I'm concerned. But they did a facsimile on a pretty interesting way that allowed him to not be just chased by his father again. He was actually dealing with what scared him about his father as an adult, as opposed to what scared him about his father as a kid.
Yeah, God, real quick, because I'm hanging on this movie and it's making me hate this movie a little bit more. And let me, like, I'm like grasping it, and I want to explain why. Because like what Corey was saying, like, oh, that was the turning point. Okay, so if you're like hanging your hat on, like, this is a Shining sequel, and you want to have like a powerful scene like this, and I want to like it because I actually felt like the effort behind it was good. But like in the same way, God, it like cheapens so many things, because okay, you think of like Jack in this position, and that was the turning point, and he kind of like gave in. Like, maybe he was fighting it, and maybe he was going mad himself, but you're right, like that was the turning point. That's where he was tempted essentially and turned on his family, where okay, you have Danny who's coming back, and he struggled with AA, and he had become his father, and now he's like turning away from that. But ultimately it doesn't matter, because he's just taken over by the house then, and that cheapens that kind of feeling. It's like, okay, well, if you're gonna have Dan Torrance like fight it and overcome it, then that needs to be the decision. Okay, like
Yeah, that's a really
I
good
am
point.
not, yeah, I'm not gonna take the
I
drink.
agree with
I'm
that.
not gonna turn on it, but then it's to be like, oh, we're gonna take over him anyways, and he's gonna chase someone down the hallway. It just cheapens
That, I think,
everything.
I think you're right, but I think that comes from the source material, because the issues, again, that sympathetic Jack Torrance versus non-sympathetic Jack Torrance in the movie versus the book, like in the book, he is co-opted by the hotel. They use his alcoholism to get him, but they could get him by other means, is kind of what I gather. Whereas the other way around, like it's not necessarily true that in The Shining that him taking a drink is just part of him going, like that is his story arc in that movie, is falling back in with the drink and the question of whether or not he's insane or not. So when they go back and they're trying to bridge that gap, they're going to the source material. They're going to the Stephen King understanding of Jack Torrance, which is that, yeah, even if he denied the drink, the hotel still has a power over people. So it's just the difference in how that power dynamic is played based on your like Stephen King understanding versus your Stanley Kubrick understanding. And there's not a whole lot you can do about that. You're threading a fucking needle. And so I'm sympathetic to it, but I agree that it does cheapen it a little bit. There's not a whole lot you can do. I feel like if they had pulled back on that and showed like a real like Scanner style power struggle, where they kind of did that, where he's like half eye, half glossy with the other eye and all that shit. But it just didn't work. It was too much, and then he goes back to, I don't know. To me, that struggle seemed very. It was too much. If they had shown it for a few seconds and shown like his eyes flash or something, I think it would have been more subtle and more understandable. And then like I don't know how it would have played out from there. But to me, it was overplayed.
Yeah,
and that's really the crime they made. Rather than I can understand why they made the decision to have him visibly fight that and have the ghost still have power even without the drink. I get that why they did that because of the Stephen King book, but you can't. If you can still overcook the thing.
Yeah. We actually have not really talked about the story of this movie.
Yeah, we got to get into some other stuff for sure. So, like, how did you guys feel about Abra and, like, her performance and, like, her role in general versus, like, this crew of vampires and all that shit?
Parts of it were cool. God, like, and that's the thing. This movie has a couple beats where I was like, that was like really fucking cool. Specifically, the dream scene where she traps the chick in the hat or whatever, and like tears her hand up, and her face
is a theme.
Yeah,
that's a theme of Flanagan movies.
Yeah, that was a really cool scene. And there were a couple other moments too where they were able to incorporate kind of the horrific elements of the Shine aspect. And I do want to, since I'm mostly going to shit on this movie, I do want to give props to those few moments. Another one that I really loved. So in the beginning of the film, we're seeing Danny, and he's struggling with it as an adult, and he's just like a bum, and he's like doing drugs and drinking and shit. And one scene that I really like was really impactful was he hooks up with this chick, he steals her money, she's doing like, she stole his money to like buy a bunch of coke, and he leaves her like in her bed. She's like either OD'd or she's like gotten sick from being wasted or whatever, but there's like a toddler in the room, and he just kind of leaves it there. It's kind of like this isn't my problem. And then a few weeks later,
maybe not my problem.
Yeah, and Dick Halloran's like, "Stop it now, Danny."
And then a few weeks later, their ghosts like haunt him, like, nobody's actually found our bodies yet. They're living in like some crack house or something. But that was cool.
To add to that, later in the movie, he talks about when his mother Wendy dies, how he saw a bunch of flies on her face, and he calls them like death flies or something like that. And when he first wakes up in bed before he leaves that woman and her baby, he sees a bunch of flies, but he doesn't somehow connect those two dots and think, oh, she's about to die. I should probably call an ambulance or whatever.
Well, no, that's when he sees her in his dream, isn't it? Like, that's when she appears as a ghost, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, no, he sees flies.
But he does see her. Yeah,
and then he's like, but he's automatically on edge because he sees that fly, and then he turns around and and she's like, "I'm a ghost," and he's like, "Ah, fuck."
No, I mean, when he first wakes up in bed, he definitely sees flies too, though. Which
did he?
Been like,
okay, I didn't remember that part.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I like that they included that. I kind of wish that they had showed it with his mom, like with Wendy, because I thought that was a cool like image. But he's just talking, so it's like, oh, so like
honestly, the less they show, power to that actress. She did as good as she could, but like when you're going back to like I don't know. You can't
Alex-
recreate Shelley Duvall. You just can't.
Alex Esso was the actress they cast to play Shelley Duvall, and I fucking loved that. I thought she did a great job.
I know, but like you're still facsimile of a person, and the way that
True.
they shot Jack, for example, just from profile only,
Yeah.
like they only had that one angle, and if they could nail that angle, which they kind of did, then it works.
They did do a front shot of him. So
They did.
my take on that is they hired your buddy who looks like Jack Black dressed up as Jack Torrance.
They hired what's
was
his fucking
chubby.
name? I'll look it up.
Yeah, it's just
I
that
don't
was
know.
the whole. I actually
Henry
kind of
Thomas.
agree with Bob that as far as like her mannerisms, she killed
She's
it.
great.
But
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm with Randy on the other one. It was the same problem with Jack Nicholson, or like trying that thing. It's just
It's
like
just less is more.
You can't
Yeah.
not
Jack-
see you can't not be like this is not the same person. And
The
when
more you
like,
show, the
Yeah.
more you see the flaw.
yeah, and when you
I
have so
felt-
much writing on it, like you have whole scenes with them, then it's just like I don't do.
I felt they showed way too much Jack, and kind of the more you saw Jack, the worse he looked. But
Yeah.
the more you saw Wendy, the more I was like, she is.
Oh,
killing
I
it
disagree.
right now. I
Well,
don't
she
know.
did great. Like on an acting front, no qualms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
just the more you see of her, the more like we're trained to see patterns. If we
They
don't see the
shoulda
exact same
shown, like,
pattern
yeah,
of
her
Shelley Duvall
hair.
face, we're
Yeah.
gonna have a problem.
If she would have just done like the voices, like she killed like that crazy
The voice
accent,
was
and, like the
perfect.
way like, Daddy.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
By the
But-
way, sorry,
but
go.
like, yeah, if they had just like shown her like from the she's like making him a sandwich, you see the back of her hair or something like that would have probably been ideal.
The guy who played Jack Nicholson was Henry Thomas, who was
Okay.
the father from Hill House.
Of course it
the
was.
young father.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Hugh Grant.
Okay, yeah.
Which
Gotcha.
I mean, that's just you're right. He was giving it to his buddy, but it was also he's also like a good actor. And
Yeah.
like as much as I kind of thought the same thing at the
Okay.
time, I was like, yeah, this is like a slightly pudgier version. Maybe he just has a bigger chin roll.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it looked like Jack Black playing Jack
Yeah, I mean,
Nicholson.
and the thing the more you show, the more flawed it appears, and that's like it's less is more with this movie. Anytime you're like, you can recreate hallways, you can recreate like long shots of little girls down the hallway, you can recreate rooms, but you can't recreate an actor's face. And if you can, actually you can, but it sucks on either a visual level or a ethical level. It kind of fucking sucks. So
One thing I wanted to mention that was probably one of my biggest problems with the movie was like the interplay between Dan Torrance and Abra. Like they sort of come together and form kind of like a unified force to combat this like Winnebago vampires or whatever you want to call them. And I didn't really like buy into their relationship dynamic. Like I never felt like they were like truly like joined together. I felt like they were just sort of like existing. Like I didn't.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't
There
buy
was
what you
it.
mean,
no
like
to me outside
That
of
would be
Danny.
she's 13.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
And
she's 13. Yeah.
This is the first person she's met, and she's like, "Oh my god!"
Could have had more of like a father-daughter relationship, especially because her dad gets murdered. Very unceremoniously, by the way. They just
Yeah, that
yeah,
kinda
right
sucks.
over that.
that's what I mean.
Well,
Like
I agree with
everything's
that.
so unemotional in this movie. Like, okay, so this girl who's 13, dad dies, and like there's no, and also too like the way that they kill the best friend in this too. So like, you
That poor
know,
guy.
Dan has like overcome his
love that
alcoholism
I
due
liked it.
to the help of that guy, and I liked how that dude was like willing to help out, and then. Just like there's this one vampire chick where she can like tell people to do shit like that Jessica
The
Jones
She's a
pusher.
pusher.
or whatever.
Andy
yeah.
the Viper.
So she's like, kill yourself. And the dude like kills himself. And like, God, they didn't even give it a beat. They didn't even like
No,
let
okay.
it sit for a second before they were like, it just like moved on from it. I was like, what? In a 2.5 hour movie where you have like 5 characters, like take a second to acknowledge that somebody just blew their own goddamn face off and he was your best friend for 8 years. Like, what the fuck?
You got a counterpoint, Corey?
So Dan has experienced a lot of death, be it people who were already dead or people who died in front of him. And while it really sucks, I think that moment that happens, that switch flips, that, you know, oh shit, what about the girl? Like I'm now all alone and she's the priority.
but it was really just for the audience, honestly, not even like to reflect Dan's emotions. It was like the dude kills himself, and I didn't even have a second to say, oh shit, because literally it happens, and then immediately behind him, Abra's like, I didn't see the crow or whatever. Like, she's the one who initiates it. Like, just in a storytelling, like filmmaking format, like give it 1 second, like for the guy to kill himself and for the audience.
I think.
To, like,
they gave you a shot, but
yeah,
I
think they could have
that
had
scene.
more. They could have had more.
That type
That's
of pacing probably would have helped the movie if they were in some instances a little bit quicker, because I sort of like how they went from guy dies, Ewan McGregor looks a little sad, and then Crow just pops up and needles the girl, drugs her up.
Yeah. That whole
I didn't
thing,
really understand why, if they knew where the girl was, why they didn't all just go get the girl and like leave. Like everybody else just sort of like played into the trick that they all knew.
I don't think
about.
that was the case. I think that he was there as a safety.
Yeah.
That was how I took it anyway. I mean,
Uh,
that's the thing. It's
well,
like
he
this,
said,
that's
like,
a
I got
key
some
difference.
tricks up my sleeve, and he
Yeah.
just
I
somehow
like that.
is not with everybody. I mean, it's
Right,
I
No,
don't- that's
you separate,
fine.
you divide and
His-
conquer. His trick is that he can.
but
if
he was
he
all
can,
alone. I don't know.
That he didn't need to use his shine. His trick was that he's just going to bust your door and stab
Well,
your
he can.
dad
If he can
and hurt
locate,
you.
if anything funny starts going down, he's on the outside. He can. He's like this fail-safe maneuver, and fortunately,
guess.
they did that. That's how I took it anyway. I didn't think
Yeah,
too much
well,
about
it
it.
is.
Where Dan learned how to snipe.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Right? He's a crack shot. It's just another power.
Dude,
Yeah.
I would
Also,
say
I
if
did
you
like-
could trim
He
Andy
just uses
the
force
Viper
to guide the
entirely.
bullets.
Right.
Also,
If you could trim Andy the Viper from this movie entirely, I would be okay with that. That
I-
did not add anything to me.
I didn't like how these vampires who live, like, one is like, oh, you watch the gladiators in Rome, who live like forever and ever and ever off, like, feeding off of this steam that they steal from people who have like some shine to them. They like, the dude gets in a wreck and die. Like they die like regular people.
Yeah.
And so his, like, he has this whole like monologue where he's like, you're arrogant, so you think you're just gonna live forever. If they know that they get in a car accident like a normal human being and will die, why the fuck? Like, that has nothing to do with arrogance. Like, why the fuck wouldn't you wear your seatbelt if, like, you get
Well,
shot
he's not saying he's
like a
arrogant because he
normal
doesn't.
person and
Right.
He's just
die?
arrogant in general. He's like, you're
No, I know,
arrogant.
but it was kind of like, oh, because you think you're immortal. It's like
It's just
they
the way
die
it works
just
is
like
pretty-
everybody else.
Well, they die just like everybody else if they're killed, but they can't.
Mhm.
You can also be healed by sucking up the steam. Like they're Ra's al Ghul. They can be killed. They just if they can't get back to the goddamn Lazarus pit, then they're fucked. And that's the problem with this fucking movie is you've got comic book villains. You've got comic book villains, and it just doesn't.
I hated
I
it.
don't
When
know.
she does the double huff of the steam
Yeah.
and then like fully heals, it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is just Super Saiyan right
Dude,
here.
I'll tell you, I would say this: the fucking them showing the actual straight up torture and murder of a child, that was gutsy as fuck.
Yeah, it's brutal.
That's
like
true,
that.
but I
That
didn't
was fucking
feel it. Like,
rough.
yeah, on paper it is. I didn't
Yeah.
like feel it though.
Oh,
I
felt it.
really felt it whenever Dan and his friend dug the corpse up and they're like smelling the
Sure,
body. That's
that
when I
was
really
more.
felt it.
Yeah, that did give it more impact. But I guess, like you said,
The
like, oh my
films
god,
didn't
they
seem
tortured
that
a
bad.
child in this film, and like, yeah, they
Yeah.
did, but it didn't feel like that.
They
They did it on
evil when
camera,
they were
and
torturing
to me
him,
it showed.
but
What'd you
not
say?
outside of. They felt evil and bad when they were torturing the little boy.
Yeah,
But then outside of that, it
Yeah.
was not convincing.
They're buying groceries.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
the thing
Also,
is, this
yeah,
movie
they're like
feels
in
like
a
fucking Stephen King.
Winnebago, and they have a line at one point. They have a line where they're like, "Let's call the
Yeah.
cops," or "Let's go," and they're like, "Nope, these people, they're too well protected. They're just," and I'm like, they're driving around in a goddamn Winnebago. What do you mean?
But
they're
they can
tell
protected?
people to
They're-
kill
what do you-
themselves and
how are
shit.
that
They
doesn't
also
mean
just
they're
shoot
well
them.
protected.
With
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
the
It means you've got superpowers. Is
This-
fucking
the
Magneto well
cops-
protected?
But the cops can stand like on the other side of the street and shoot that bitch. But no, they made
Yeah.
it seem like they're this like organization that's controlling things. It's like they're just cruising around like from campsite to campsite. They're a bunch
I
of
don't know, man.
bums.
They're superheroes. They're a superhero gang. That's pretty fucking dangerous.
In
And
9 Winnebagos in a row. You
Yeah.
can't.
They're
miss
following
that.
the dead, baby.
Just call the FBI. Yeah, look for like 9 Winnebagos driving. in a
Yeah,
row.
blow
But
that
they can
shit
tell the
up.
cops to blow
Guys.
their goddamn brains out, and they can say, "Nope, nothing here. Didn't see nothing here." They're all fucking Sith
These aren't the
lords.
I don't
droids
know
you're
if
looking
they
for.
know that at the
Jean Grey
time,
and Sith
though.
Lords.
And that's just the one
Yeah, you
girl.
Yeah.
Oh, they can like they all have different shit. Like you've got fucking the giant from Twin Peaks, who's like been around since like Methuselah or whatever, and
Yeah.
like who knows what his fucking power is? We never see. Maybe he's got fucking Wolverine claws. We
I
don't
think
fucking
that's why
know.
it was kind of dumb too. Is like they're all like, "Oh, we have these powers," but you only see 2, kind of like.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
I-
but
I
do you really
like-
want them to spend time getting to know
No,
any more
okay.
of those people?
No,
what
not
you
really.
just said.
Yeah.
Because all I could hear in my head is like, my name is Trekker. Yeah, my name is Pusher. And then just going through like a song number of this is what their abilities are.
Right? Yeah, we
I
don't need it.
was regretting hearing that, and then they never did it, and I was so happy.
Turns into a video game at that point. You
Yeah.
choose who
Yeah.
you want to
Right.
play. And what
I really
fucking
just-
stats you
I-
This
have.
isn't
I
Street Fighter the
hated-
movie.
I hated that whole gang and really the whole aspect of this film. Like I hated it, and also
here's
the
the
chick
thing.
wearing like the blossom hat and shit. I hated everything
Blossom
about these
hat.
damn vampires.
What blossom hat?
Dude, the chick with the hat or whatever. It's like that weird.
Oh, that's not a
Rose.
blossom hat, man. Come on, get your shit together.
Oh, Ray. Chicago Ray.
Get your shit together, buddy. Ain't no
Yeah.
blossom hat,
Brady will show you a blossom hat.
dude. I
Damn,
got one
bro.
right here. I'll show you later.
Keep it in your pants, old red stag. So there is. We can go on for a minute. I know there's so much more to talk about for this
2.5
movie.
hour movie.
I know, man. Any like quick hitters before we rate this thing y'all want to mention?
Flanagan is as precise as ever in terms of like getting shit in frame the way that that he wants it. He wants it to be a facsimile of The Shining, and it works perfectly as much as it can. I think like he does his due diligence. He hides shit in the frame. He gives you lots of little nuggets to look at. I appreciate the way this man makes movies and makes films. It's like to me, if you separate it again from The Shining, and you just focus on this being an X-Men story about like steam vampires or whatever, then it's kind of fun and it's enjoyable, you know, and it has so many little nuggets about the story at hand. So yeah, there's just a lot of detail in there is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Corey, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, super quick. I think this is a better visual film than spoken because a lot of the strongest scenes had no words or exceptionally few. And then when there is a dialogue, it usually seems to cheapen the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They just info dump a bunch of shit that you probably don't need to know anyways.
Let's world build.
Yeah. Juice, anything else you wanted to add, man?
Real quick, like just this movie's a hot mess, and here's just another detail. And maybe there's too many details that they
Just
didn't
one.
spend time thinking out. But okay, Halloran is able to visit Danny like as a ghost and has this powerful shine, and it does this whole monologue about how as a child his father came back as a ghost and shit like that, and he had to put the ghost away. Halloran worked at the hotel. He worked at the hotel and never said anything about putting Ghost away or never.
That's
like
because
did
he
any
says that his shine wasn't
Ghostbusted-
enough that they never came for him because
Yeah.
his shine wasn't
They
I
were
enough.
just pictures.
Look, they're
But
making
his father
they're making
did,
up the
though,
rules
or
anyway.
whatever. His grandfather was able to come back to him, but not the place where he
What?
worked that's full of ghosts. He does
His
this whole
grandfather had a
story, yeah.
shine that was stronger than his. I don't know.
No, his grandmother had the shine. His grandfather didn't have
Oh.
the shine.
Well, I don't know,
It's in
man.
the
Like,
script, Randy.
Didn't you read it?
look, the internal logic of it is fine,
I just
but it's
say
not
it's
perfect. It's
messy.
comic
Yeah,
book
it's
level.
just- I
It's
don't think
comic
that's
book
even
level.
fine.
No, I think that's the best way to put it.
It is messy. Yeah, okay, let's go ahead and rate this thing out of 5. Ray and D, why don't you kick us off? How do you feel about Doctor Sleep?
I didn't expect to be defending this movie as much as I did. I from what I had heard, the hype train was pretty strong on this, but I guess I heard wrong. I don't know. At least for this group, I did.
We're just haters.
I don't know which is which. I guess Rotten Tomatoes is going to be a big guessing game for me, extra this time. But yeah, I think this movie, when taken out of the context of The Shining, loses a lot, but becomes a better movie. You know, like it
True.
becomes a more enjoyable movie, and if you enjoy it on the level of an action adventure, X-Men level thing, then I have a good time with it. And that's kind of where I was at with it. And then it just sprinkled in some shining visuals that I enjoyed on, like I said, like a music video level. That's just like, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, you got the fucking carpet right. Great. Oh, cool. Like, oh, there's a big ass maze. That's great. Like, okay, playing the hits. Like, if I start thinking about the original too much, though, like, there's obviously no comparison really. And like I said before, one exists on its own, and the other exists as a parasite to the other. At best,
Like a cancer.
when paired together,
Yeah.
one is the parasite, and it's clear which one is which. But when taken apart, I think it's an all right movie. It has its story arc. It could be trimmed down a little bit. I wasn't as like viciously bored with the movie as Justin seems to have been, and Corey maybe, but I had a good time with it. I just think it's a different kind of movie, and it just has to be taken for what it is. So with that in mind, I would say like a 3.75. To me, I think that's pretty fair. I think it's made with love, obviously. It's threading a lot of needles between two parallel universes of The Shining. It's having to do a lot, and it faults on some things on its own, like having too much exposition in the language. The acting isn't nearly as good. Overall, I mean, because again, uncomparable, but I don't think it's a bad adventure movie. I think it's fun, and I think it gave me a lot of like cool little like fanboy nuggets. And normally I don't go in for that sort of thing, but like before I watched this movie, I decided pretty much in advance that I had to sever the connection between the two and only compare them as sort of like an experimental compartment of my brain of how those two combine. But if I look at it as its own thing, it's good and it's fun, and it's not the best thing in the world. It's not the worst. It's on the upper end of okay.
Cool. Juice, how you feel out of 5?
Not good, Bob.
Damn.
Okay, so and I understand taking that logic, and I've kind of gone back and forth with this on my own. It's like, okay, let's separate this movie, and then also like you can't separate it, like, so let's attach it to The Shining. If you separate it, so if I say this is an action adventure movie, I seriously like, and I like those kinds of movies, like, you know, like I go to the Marvel movies and everything like that. I would seriously, like, as far as like logic and dialogue and like the type of like effects that they use, I would put it somewhere around like an X-Men Wolverine's origins. Seriously, like the Winnebago people, to me, there's nothing great about them. I think the whole dialogue about steam and the visualization of steam and the way their eyes glow, and the fact that like none of them are really, even the crow, who's supposed to be like kind of menacing, like are never really developed. Even when the grandpa dies, I thought it all looked cheap, and the dialogue was like cringeworthy to me at times, honestly. Like even like the hat chick, I didn't find intriguing in like the least bit. And like, yeah, okay, they killed a kid unseen, and like I personally didn't feel it when they dug him up. It was more impactful, but they never just like felt menacing, or like they just felt cheesy as shit, and they didn't look particularly good. That was my personal opinion. So okay, so from the action adventure standpoint, I don't think it's that great. Now I did like the way that Abra was like fucking powerful, and the visualizations that she is able to create were cool. I liked that scene particularly, but we didn't get a whole lot of that, even, honestly. So then if you tie it to, so like, okay, then you say, well, it's also tied to The Shining. It's like kind of horror or whatever. I think that the logic that they use, like, it's really messy. Like I was saying, like with O'Halloran and how you trap ghosts, and how the ghosts or how the hotel is its own entity, like these vampire people, and how it's not just a haunted place, but it's like feeding on people. But O'Halloran didn't get that, or he wasn't being fed off of his shine. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And then when the dialogue is actually good, so I thought the dialogue was really bad with the vampire people. When the dialogue is actually good, like with Danny and in the gold room and stuff like that, but then it gets hurt by like the visuals and the logic of everything, so that it kind of falls apart there for me too. It's long as shit. I wanted to walk out several times, but it's got some cool visuals every now and then, and has some cool like tributes to The Shining at some points. So I'm gonna give it a 1.5.
Damn. All right. Corey, how you feel?
So, if you were to view this strictly as a sequel to The Shining, I feel like it does a lot to upset what The Shining laid out. The world building, I feel like, detracts from the mystery of the first film. And this is really not a horror film. Action adventure for sure, the superhero thing. Taking it for what it is without being a Shining sequel, I'll give this a solid 3 because it's fun. And I feel like if I knew absolutely nothing about The Shining, I would still enjoy this. But if you want to go hard in the paint with The Shining details, this, I would agree with Justin there.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know. This movie has a lot of problems, and I think my favorite parts of the movie are definitely the references to The Shining, which probably doesn't say a whole lot of good stuff about this movie in particular. I got a problem with the whole steam thing. Like, it's just very, very silly to me, and it feels like it does not belong in the world of The Shining. Like, these people who just like eat steam, and like for some reason, if you torture the person, it like purifies the steam. Oh, that sweet, sweet steam! It's so pure.
Monsters, Inc.
It's.
Have you ever seen fucking It?
Yeah, it's just, I get that. I guess that's kind of like a reoccurring thing.
It's a steam. It's the Dark Tower infects this thing.
Yeah, it's just it feels very silly to me in a way that The Shining, the original movie, The Shining, did not feel silly. This is also like way more, or it tries to be like way more clear in its rules and like how everything like works internally than the first movie was, and I think that's kind of to its own detriment in a way because it doesn't like totally follow all of that. Like one thing I was wondering is like if you're following like Dan Torrance as a man, just like going through his day-to-day life, wouldn't he come across other ghosts just around?
There's not
like,
that much
out and
steam
about,
in the world, though.
But ghosts.
Well, he was an alcoholic.
Yeah, I guess, and maybe that like numbs whatever.
Well, he did admit that the reason he started drinking was because he could no longer hear Tony.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, maybe that.
I wanted
explains
Tony. I wanted Tony to show up and actually be a real dude, and he's like Arnold Schwarzenegger or some shit. That's where it felt like we were at by the end of this movie.
You can call me Tony.
I'm Tony, Mrs. Torrance.
It's not a tumor.
But it is. It's a cancer. You say that.
Also, like the whole name of the movie and like why Danny Torrance gets known as like Dr. Sleep is another thing. It's a whole nother thing that's just like blasted by.
That makes perfect sense for a long ass book, but not for a movie where that is crammed in.
That's what I mean by like this movie has so much damn plot that it blasts through so many things that should hold a lot of weight and like actually mean something, but it just doesn't do that. Even in the fact that like, oh, this is literally why this is called what it's fucking called, but it doesn't matter at all to the story, like really, which is kind of a shame. And I think this definitely should have been a miniseries with like 10 episodes or whatever, and like it would have been a much, much better story, and I think it would have been able to like play within its own rules that it sets much better, and probably would have been better if it didn't give us as much of like the Overlook Hotel scenes as it did. Even though those are my favorite parts, it probably would have served this movie if you cut out like half of that shit. Because at a certain point, it literally is just like Jack Torrance running through the hallways, chasing this kid with an axe, and it's like, yeah, okay, like you feel like just straight pander to at that point. You're like, okay, you get fucking greedy with it now. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
I could go on and on. Overall, the movie doesn't suck. I did enjoy it. I don't know if it holds a whole lot of rewatch value, but I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5, and that's going to put the aggregate for us
Especially after all
Aggregates,
these critiques. God, your critique sounds like a 2.5 at
The biggest
best.
The biggest problem with this movie is that you got two
Just
things
wait.
going on, and they just
Yeah.
don't work together.
Y'all all just gave this a positive note, though. That's so high. A 3.5? Like, that's a 1.5 away from being a perfect movie.
I mean, that's math, man. That's just math right there, baby.
It's still enjoyable to me. Like,
Yeah, I still enjoyed it.
I didn't
even
think
though
about
it's-
walking out at
it's-
all.
Neither did I actually. I mean, I guess I didn't talk a whole lot about like its strong suits. I like that it brought a lot of the musical cues back. From
Yeah, the score
original
was fun.
Shining. I thought that was pretty dope. Ewan McGregor did a great job. I really liked his buddy. I thought his whole role actually mattered. I thought that added a lot of value to the story. The little girl played Avra. I thought she did a great job, even though I do kind of have a problem with like her and Dan's relationship
I didn't
a little
have
bit.
a problem with that, but
I don't know. It does have some good stuff. Like I said, I love watching Alex Esso play Wendy Torrance. I fucking love that. For some reason, that really landed with me.
Interesting.
So yeah, there is some good stuff for sure. Our aggregate's going to be a 2.9 on this one. We're going to go ahead and jump over into our Rotten Tomatoes segment here and see what the critics and users have to say about Dr. Sleep.
Certified fresh to death.
All right, let's go around the table. First, we are going to try to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score for the critics. We got a solid count today. Critic count is 251 for this new movie, Dr. Sleep. So let's go around the table. Corey left us. Let's go around the table. Let's see if I can stall long enough. No, no. Randy, kick us off.
Oh, what's in the news? What's going on? What's going on?
Randy, kick us off. What do you think the critics rated Dr. Sleep?
I think this movie's going to be play a lot better with like your casual horror fan or just people looking for a good time than it is with the critics. So my score is going to be, I'm going to say 65.
65.
No, you know what? 60. We're going 60.
60.
Okay.
I'm dropping. All right. Rob, what do you think the critics rated Dr. Sleep?
Oh man, that's kind of hard, honestly. It's probably a little bit higher than a 60, I think. So I'll just go with a 70.
70. All right, Corey, do you know the critic score, or would you like to guess?
I do not know it, so I'll guess.
So 60 and 70 from Randy and Bob.
I feel like critics are going to be the hard ones. They're going to be the ones looking at The Shining and then looking at this. I'm going to say 55.
55. All right. Bob said 70. He is going to take it. This doesn't make any goddamn sense. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it. 75%. However, not certified fresh, even though we have a solid like 251 count, and 75% is not certified fresh for whatever reason. I don't know why either.
Maybe it's too new. I don't know.
I don't know.
That doesn't make sense either. No.
Critic consensus is Dr. Sleep forsakes the elemental terror of its predecessor for a more contemplative sequel that I have to read this like sideways. Sequel that balances poignant themes that's against spine-tingling chills. Sorry, the way that my setup is like I have to look at you guys like from the side.
Okay.
So yeah,
I think I think a medium to fair or a fair to decent is where we're at with the scores pretty much overall.
Yeah.
What about the users?
Let's get into the oozers. Verified ratings.
Verified?
Verified.
Verified.
Oozer rating 3,327. Let's go backwards. Corey, you can start. What do you think the oozers rated this?
I'm going to go with a 75.
75.
I feel like people are going to like this. Yeah.
Okay. Bob, you can kick us off next. What is it? What do you think?
I'm going to go with a comedy number. 69, please.
69, and Randy.
You snaked the comedy number from me. I'm gonna $1 you, Bob. I'm gonna go 70.
70.
You dog.
All right. Sorry, you guys took so long. I forgot Corey's score. Sorry, Corey. What was yours?
75.
75. Corey's gonna take it. Congratulations, my guy. Audience score out of 3,327. 90%.
Dang.
Like Dr. Sleep.
Real man of the people now, aren't we?
Justin, you lost your wind when you were saying that. 90.
Yeah.
Dude, even in the Slack channel, like a couple people came around, like, you got to see Dr. Sleep, and I don't know, I am off it on this one. I am off it. I don't know what happened to me, but I just like I did not.
I talked to
like
my dad yesterday, and he's like, "What's that new horror movie? What is it? Scream 2? What is it?" And I was like, The Shining 2. And he's like, "Oh yeah, The Shining, The Shining. That's what it is." Yeah. One of the guys at work, he turns to me and asks me if I watch horror. I said, "No, my son does." He's like, "Oh well, this new Shining 2. It's real. It's real."
Oh,
and he was laughing his ass off about this dude saying that The Shining 2 is real.
So I just watched Terminator Dark Fate, and like one of my notes during the movie when they made a kill box, which is a very big scene in Terminator Dark Fate, was when they're like, yeah, we're gonna lead these guys into the woods. So all caps, making a kill box, The Shining 2 Dark Fate.
Dark Fate. Fucking hell. The kill box.
Kill box.
Fuck. That's where we are now. We're at Dark Fate territory.
Dr. Sleep be compartmentalizing all his demons and then releasing them on a lady with a hat. That's the superhero movie we watched this week.
Facts. Randy, you got some trivia, right? Let's go ahead and
I
give
got
us some trivia. Let's do it.
It's totally time for trivia.
All right, guys. So I dropped a couple nuggets in there, but there's a little bit already for this movie being so fucking high profile for horror fans. So Flanagan, like I said, I mentioned this, had to convince Stephen King that despite his own distaste for Kubrick's The Shining, audiences were more familiar with that version and largely preferred it to King's own Shining. As such, this film had to be a sequel of Kubrick's film and include some direct references to it. Just some. I mean,
just a couple references.
Certainly the visuals, and that's where I think he split the difference. He's like, okay, well, we'll do the visuals of Kubrick's The Shining, and we got to do the ending of Kubrick's The Shining, but you know, we'll have the rules of the universe that you had in your books, Steve. And Steve's like, well, that's fine. Whatever he says, I don't know.
Oh, that's real fine.
That's a real real potent imitation.
That's real fine.
Where's Cesar when you
Randy.
need him? That's real fine. My name's Stephen King. This is terrible. All right.
You guys are great.
In the scene where the hospital cat Azzy, who's named Azrael, jumps on the desk in front of Dan before following her to what should be an empty room, he puts down a magazine he's reading, and that magazine is the January 1978 issue of Playgirl magazine that his father, Jack Torrance, was reading in the lobby of the Overlook Hotel while waiting for Stuart Ullman and Bill Watson on closing day.
A classic.
So,
Classic.
like,
That's a good.
this is where yeah, everybody
good
knows
one.
that.
I've got it framed
I didn't
at
know
home.
that. Maybe Jack Torrance, like, he had some like just latent homoeroticism that was like really playing with him in the hotel or something because he's into Playgirl, I guess. I didn't notice that ever. So yeah, here comes just basically a barreling through a list of the Shining references, the Kubrick Shining references. I'm sure you guys noticed this. I did right away. When Dan Torrance is interviewed by Dr. John, the room that he's in is identical to Stuart Ullman's office in The Shining 1980, where Jack Torrance interviewed for the caretaker role of the Overlook. Right down to the paint color and the little American flag on the right side of Dr. John / Mr. Ullman's
Oh,
desk.
yeah.
It was like, oh my God, man, play the fucking hits, baby. Free bird. All right.
The interview office. This is what I came to see.
This
really makes it worth it.
Shot. I don't know, but that's Flanagan, and you got like that. He shows love for all parts of the animal. You gotta give him credit.
2.5 hours for this interview scene. Yeah, baby.
Well, they spend a lot of time. I mean, this movie's only 10 minutes longer than
So
fucking The
salty.
Shining. So,
Yeah.
It's like the same length, basically.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The most of the elements from The Shining were recreated with duplicate sets and look-like actors, though 4 shots were reused. Those shots being the aerial shot of the water and the island, the blood pouring from the elevator, the 2 shots after it, and the 2 shots after the island of the car being driven up the mountain road. The shots were degrained, recolored as day for night, and had snow digitally added.
Oh.
And I thought those scenes, I really liked those parts. I was like, yeah, this is the exact fucking shot, but there's snow now. It's great.
I will
Music
say
video!
when they drove up to the hotel, I was like, oh fuck yeah! Like I don't just the way it loomed or whatever.
Exactly,
I was
it's like a
kick ass.
That's the fan boner moment. That whole thing.
Yeah.
So and I
Boner
got
fuel.
Real quick question on that, because if they did recycle some scenes, is there anything that stopped them from recycling all of the other ones?
I think that he just probably, like my guess, this is a pure guess, is that he wanted like he can't necessarily reuse any shots with Jack Nicholson in it because later he's going to have a Jack Nicholson stand it, and the glaring differences are going to be that much more glaring. That would be my guess, but I don't know. Oh no, I've gone dark.
Huh, Randy?
We can hear you.
Dark.
You're good, Randy.
We can hear.
No, we
No,
can't.
he went dark.
I've gone dark. Am I back?
Yeah, we
Randy!
got that.
Yeah.
You never really quite left.
Yeah, is
Oh.
Becky clearing the snow off your satellite or something?
yeah. Our VCR is on the fritz, so you know. You know how that is. All right, so yeah, I just think it's a Flanagan trying to be consistent within his own movie, but I don't have any evidence besides gut instinct on that.
Also, there's just no reason to show that blood scene again, like from the elevator.
That actually did bother me because it's like, oh, it's the blood, and she's like, huh, and just keeps walking.
Yeah.
No,
Well, that's really cool. Her shoes didn't even get wet.
Because young Dan and Wendy were both terrified by that. So that's something where they're just like, what the fuck? And then she walks up and she's like, not that big of a deal. I've seen worse. I got a boy once.
Must be a blood leak somewhere.
Where's all the steam?
She looks at it and she's just kind of like, she really does just kind of give like a, oh, okay. Like, it's like not even like a passing glance.
I see it every day. I'm Rose the Hat. Don't you like my hat?
Whoa. When did we get Rose the Hat on this podcast?
Special guest.
Hey, y'all. I'm Rose the Hat.
The Hat. No, there's not even a discernible accent anymore. Very much all over the place.
I'm just Paula Dean at this point.
Let's see. So the way they recreated the Overlook Hotel so precisely had partially to do with borrowing blueprints that were acquired from Kubrick's estate. So they went the extra fucking mile. You can't say that Flanagan doesn't do his goddamn homework. And here's sort of like a source of much problem for me as somebody who's not literate, as an illiterate who doesn't read the King books. There are a few Dark Tower references in the film. The bus line that both Danny and Abrick take is called Tet, which I guess is a reference. The baseball player's number is 19, which I guess is a reference. The place where the victim is killed is called Lamarck Industries, and which must be a reference. Dick Halloran refers to Ka when talking to Danny about karmic debts. Must be a reference. So this is part of the problem, is they're now having to adhere to not just The Shining, but also the extended Kingiverse. And, you know,
it's okay.
Not interested.
It's still a 3.5.
Not fucking interested.
Oh, come on. I didn't even rate it the highest. You're on my ass. Get out of here.
It's easier to say 3.5 than 3.75, okay? It's an extra syllable.
Oh, so I see who's not willing to put in the work.
Lazy stains over here.
According to director Mike Flanagan, the performance of Jacob Tremblay, who was our baseball player child, who got fucking murdered, during the first take of his death scene was so intense that it surprised and scared the other actors, including Rebecca Ferguson, Rose the Hat, who was so horrified that she was stammering and couldn't get her lines out. When the scene was over, Tremblay got up, grinned, was covered in fake blood, and high-fived his father and walked over to craft services for a snack, leaving Ferguson and the rest of the cast, quote, shell-shocked and traumatized.
I killed it, Dad. Let's go see some Yabos.
I made some adults fucking stutter. Is great.
The little kid is the most metal person on set.
Yeah. That was rad. Time for a cup of steam.
I'm gonna go listen to Guar.
Time for a cup of steam. Boy,
Yeah,
the new hit drink that's sweeping the nation.
pure steam.
So here's a cameo. Danny Lloyd, who played the original character Danny Torrance in The Shining, makes a cameo in this movie at the baseball game and is listed in the credits as spectator. So not much of a cameo, but he didn't exactly get the fucking Stephen King and It making self-references for 20 minutes.
Yeah,
deal,
seriously.
but he
I
got
can't
in there.
find the ending.
$300. When Dan first meets Abra in person, she suggests that he pose as her uncle to avoid looking suspicious. She subsequently calls him Uncle Dan as a term of endearment. However, in the novel, it's revealed that they are in fact related. Abra's mother is Dan's half-sister, the result of an extramarital affair by Jack Torrance
Stephen
shortly
King.
before losing his job as a teacher. Yeah, fuck that.
Glad that was not in the movie. That would have been lame.
Oh,
There's
Steven.
so much, like as much as you could have trimmed, thank God they trimmed at least some of this shit. Like, that is not necessary. That is some fucking Star Wars thinking. Not everybody has to be fucking related to be important.
I'm not gonna lie, when they did that scene, knowing that her mother was white, I was like, man, they're gonna combine this, aren't they? This is gonna be real. So funny that was an actual thing.
Yeah.
Old Jack's just blowing steam out his wiener, apparently. Anything he touches,
Pure
steam.
Here's Johnny. All right.
Damn.
That's his nut phrase. Everybody's got their nut phrase.
Everyone's got one.
Everyone's got one.
What the fuck is your nut phrase, Randy?
Mine is the horror. The horror. Come on, everybody's got their nut phrase. Hashtag nut phrase. Let's find everybody's nut phrase. Let's be real about our lives.
I thought Randy's
Really
was just going to be
Kraken.
like piercing,
Really
terrifying
sick.
screams.
I mean, that's the other person's response on my nut. All right.
Is Stephen King's nut phrase is I can't write an ending.
He
doesn't. Anticlimactic.
Too
Sorry.
far. At the end of King's novel, Danny, Billy, and Abra lure the true knots to the Overlook, but it has long since burned to the ground, which I mentioned this earlier. So in the film, obviously, he burns it down at the end. New material was added by Flanagan, blah, 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 blah. All that shit in the Overlook is new material. That's basically what this is saying. And, I think it's fair to say that it could have trimmed some. I think that's plenty fair. I did, however, God, I love my fist pumping fanboy bullshit. I really like that. Can't help it. In the film, the true knot like to instill fear in their victims before they feed on their steam or shine, as they feel it purifies it. In It, Pennywise believes that frightened flesh tastes better and equally likes to instill fear into his victims as fear salts the meat. So there's a ongoing thread, Dark Tower fucking shit, where fear is justified. Thing like extra dimensional beings and shit have to scare you because you taste better that way. So he's got his reasoning, and he's just gonna work it into every goddamn thing.
And his seasoning.
Oh Lord.
I understand it. They already called it The Shine. Why did he need to make a whole new thing called Steam? Like, why?
Well, it's like in
couldn't
the
they,
fucking
okay,
Walking Dead. Not
like
everybody calls it the walkers. They
but
call
the
it like
light leaves your
spiders or
eyes.
It's
shitters or
eclectic.
dick waggers or whatever.
Because the girl calls it magic because no one else has a name for it.
Yeah.
Right.
The guy, his grandmother, was just the one who told him it's
I
called The
guess
Shine.
that's true. Yeah.
And
The
then,
vampires call it that
the
because
true
they
dots.
see it as steam coming out of people. They visualize
well,
it.
it's their own term, so everyone has their
Yeah.
own term.
Right. It's a regionalism. Some people say pop. Some
Yeah.
people say soda. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Cool.
Let's see. The Lasser glass from director Mike Flanagan's Oculus can be seen in this film on the right-hand side of the wall when Dan is walking down the hallway towards the gold room. So adding his own oeuvre into the Kingiverse, just throwing it in there. I like that movie a lot. Just want to say that one more time for the record.
Thanks.
I really like the fucking Oculus movie. And this is finally, we're going to have one more here. The scene in which Danny first helps a patient sleep takes place inside room 217, which was the equivalent room of 237 in the novel The Shining, but was changed for the 1980 film, as the actual hotel owners were afraid guests wouldn't want to stay in room 217 after the film. They were wrong.
Yeah.
That last part's
True.
editorial.
Cool.
I'll say,
Thanks,
also,
Trivia Randy.
they rode those Moldiabos hard in this movie. God,
Yeah,
that chick
man.
was showing up left and right.
Yeah, you got a gnarly moldy fur burger in this thing too.
Yeah.
They got it. They really put it in.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
They really snuck it in there.
they
Hashtag
snuck
nut
it.
phrase. You know what time it is, gentlemen's? It's time to go hunting.
Let's hunt them.
Cooter of the week.
All right, boys, get out your rifles and pitchforks. We gotta get them.
Gotta get it.
You,
Boy,
you,
you're
get
making your ancestors proud.
your
Hey,
burlap
the boy out of the
sack.
south.
Get them.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
So Cooters. Who are you guys feeling for Cooter of the week this week?
I don't know, man. I wasn't really thinking about it this movie.
Yeah, I wasn't too much either about it. Justin, real quick, what constitutes a cooter?
We got the Cooter character type. You got a person who is filled with either smug arrogance, is one of our points, sexual manipulation, or no, sexual deviance,
Deviancy, yes.
manipulation,
Mhm.
and attire, and I like patheticness. I don't know, but we're
I think
still-
we should add.
It's a really appealing.
We should add another point that's like, how steamy are they?
Oh, it's
Oh,
steamy.
yeah. the
Oh, we got a lot of
steam.
steamers in this one. A lot of
The
heavy
The world's
steamers.
just less steamy these days, Bob.
I don't know. All
which
these
is
vampires
true.
are kind of cooterate, right? Because they're like
God
manipulating
damn these
children
vampires.
and murdering them
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
absorbing their souls.
If I had to
Yeah.
pick one, I think it has to be one of them. If I,
I
had to
kind
pick
of like
one.
the Viper chick
I was
as
gonna
a
say
cooter.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say Andy the Viper
Yeah.
to me is like, because she's at least sexual deviant in a way, even though it's really she's
Fucking up
issuing
pedophiles.
a form
Yeah,
of justice
that's true.
instead.
Right.
She's still manipulating the fuck out of them though.
So yeah,
And-
manipulative.
Yeah.
And a bit of
And,
sexual
yeah.
deviancy based off of that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how. Like you are. I guess it does it count as honeypotting somebody if you're fucking an underage kid exacting pedophile justice?
I don't think that
Sure.
counts.
I don't think that counts.
I don't think
I'm
that
not gonna
counts.
give
I
her
think that's
points on
probably
that
fair
scale.
enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about old Rose the Hat? She's got a hat.
She's
The
got
hat is
Attire.
cooterific. The
Attire.
old blossom hat, right,
And
Randy?
she doesn't wear shoes, which is like a hippie thing, I guess. People
her
do
hat
that.
is basically Cerebro, and I'm like, that's all I could think about. As soon as she did her little fly by night thing, it's like, okay, well, Dr. X is now looking for other mutants.
Oh no, that was definitely a Mary Poppins scene.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think
Evil
about
Mary
it.
Poppins.
Yeah.
Mary Poppins has got the shine, y'all.
Yeah, she does.
She's filled up with steam.
Oh, that
She's
girl
full
filled
of
with steam.
And ready to cream.
Whoa,
God,
For
Whoa.
whatever.
Mom.
I don't know.
Mary Poppins.
I don't know.
Jonah
I don't know. So
Falcon.
maybe
I like
some
Rose.
Rose the Hat sounds like a pretty good option.
So Snake might have the
She's kinda
superpower
manipulative.
to manipulate people, but
That's true.
Rose is the one who
She's the master.
she didn't have the ability to. Yeah, she's the mastermind. She's
Yeah.
like, you can live long.
Mhm.
She's the I feel like she's very manipulative and she
Yeah.
doesn't need a power for it.
She definitely thinks highly of herself. She is the
Mhm.
fucking squad leader. She's like driving the biggest
She's pretty
Fago.
self-important, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's getting all of her own groceries though. So,
Well, yeah, speaking of self-important, she wanted
Getting all her
to kill
own-
She's-
Abra.
yeah.
Yeah,
She's a real down to earth
That's some
boss. She gets her own
deviancy
groceries.
right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But 3.5.
Oh, man.
all right.
Boy.
Then.
Boy, somebody's really
Drop it
pooping their
on
pampers
Steamy
over
right
this
now.
score.
Yeah, no. Steam stains. Steaming his
Dude,
shorts.
the old steam
Uh,
stains. I should have gone steam stains. That's a good one, Bob. Good job.
Over here doing your damn job. Is anybody else? I don't know. What about like
3.5.
the squad of like shining ghosts? What about that? Because they're sexually deviant and
That
manipulative.
But there are so would you say the hotel then? Because in this movie, it's explicit that they're just part of the hotel.
They exist outside of it.
They do. Yeah.
The hotel.
But
is
they
its own thing,
breach out
and they
from
are, Yeah, that's why they're not part of the hotel.
You don't
is because they can find them else. And okay, they burn.
I
the
took that
hotel
to be like
the ground.
tendrils, but I don't know. Who gives a fuck?
Okay, they burn the hotel to the ground, and then immediately after, Abra sees old girl in the bathtub.
That's true.
Bathtub girl.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Tub girl.
Tub
Tub girl.
Wow.
Please,
Tub
no.
girl stains. How about that one?
Never type that in.
Nope,
Yeah.
not going with that one.
Not going with tub girl stains? What's up with you?
I don't know. That could work too, though. Yeah, because they're all dressed pretty goofy. Those twins with their stupid little dresses. What's up with that?
Stupid kids with stupid
Bitches.
little dresses. They
They're
just keep wanting to
sexual
play with them. No, we're not
deviants.
playing with you. You suck.
Tub girl sexually deviant. That's for
Yeah.
fucking.
Let's
I
just
don't
say
know.
tub girl for sake of getting this shit done.
Yeah, I don't think there's a strong cooter in this movie. There doesn't always have to be a cooter.
There's a lot of low level cooters. No one stand out, I don't think.
I suppose so.
We don't want to taint the name of cooter, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. So, let us know what you think.
Go
Yell at us.
Viper ass Andy and Tub Girl. Those are the two. I'm choosing.
Viper. I'm Rose the Hand. Hey, y'all.
That's a 3.5
You lost my
character
hand?
right there.
Y'all want to take a look inside my magical hat?
I got bunnies and
I've
flowers.
I've got
That's
I got
just
a
like her. It's
koozie
great.
tub in my
Dude.
bago.
I kept thinking whenever I saw Rose the Hat in this movie, I kept thinking, man, Flanagan really likes strong brunettes. This fucking dude.
True.
He's married to one. That's
Yeah, I
his,
know. It's
that's his
fucking.
type.
He's got a Hitchcockian hang up on this shit.
So on Snakebite, what's the name of the chick who always stands opposite of Johnny Depp?
What?
I don't know.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah, so she's in she's in the dang it. She's in Harry Potter as one of the
Oh, you're talking about Tim Burton's wife?
Oh, is it?
No. I think you're
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
Carter?
Helena Bonham Carter.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay, never mind, yeah.
Snakebite looks like a young Helena Bonham Carter.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, she does. Good
Yeah.
call.
She got that same
Bonham
big
doesn't
eye,
usually go
creepy
blonde, but
Yeah.
I could see that in the face for sure.
She's 15, man.
Let her grow up.
I'm
Let her
trying to
develop
stop
her
that. I'm
speed.
putting my foot down on growth.
She's actually 30.
Yeah, probably.
Damn, girl. Full of steam. See? That's keeping you nice and young.
Steam.
We have some voicemails. We got to jump over into our voicemail segment right quick. So we got two voicemails. If you would like to call in and leave us a voicemail, you can hit us up at 904-638-3231. We're gonna hear from Jim G Baby twice this evening.
Jim's the only one who had the guts to call in and spill his beans for us. You should all be ashamed of your non-bean spilling proclivities.
I know. I thought we were gonna get some steamy voicemails.
I thought we were gonna have some fucking. I thought we were gonna have taxi cab confessions on this shit.
At least one of these voicemails is steamy, I think, but
Right.
we'll find out here
Let's have
momentarily.
our steamy dreamy. Let's do it.
Here we go.
Here comes the red stack. A night Randy won't remember. What's up, fellas? It's Jim G Baby. I've been meaning to call in the past few weeks. I feel like I'm missing out. So I just wanted to pepper in a couple things. The prompts. First of all, dude, watching and listening to Randy G-Quaid meltdown on Red Stack was fucking epic. The end of that show, when Juice fucking asked him if he opened the bottle and drank the whole bitch throughout the show, and he said, I did not open a bottle of Red Stag, made me laugh my asshole off out loud. That was fucking great. But dude, Randy, who hurt you? What bet did you lose to fucking have to go to make the deliberate decision to pick Red Stag bourbon? For that price point, you could have got Bullet, Rye, OG, fucking Pendleton even. Explain, please. Also, you have an Uno tattoo. What the fuck? Like, Uno, the game? Like, do you have a deck of Uno cards tattooed on your ass or something? That's pretty awesome. But happy belated Halloween, fellas. The Joe Bob Live Watch was fucking awesome. Had a great time with y'all. Let's see, my favorite Halloween spooky season memory or thing that's happened, I guess, is just chilling with y'all, being invested in the spooky season with the straight chilling community. Fuck, what else? I always forget. Yeah, that's been dope. Oh, my dirty little secret, I fucking love We Bought a Zoo with Matt Damon. It's such a banger. Hate all you want. It's a great family film. Also, in the future, we should do Patreon picks and select the booze to go with it and select one person on the cast to fucking drink it and melt down. Love you guys. Later, y'all. Keep chilling.
End part 1. Should we comment on the facts thus far?
Yeah, I think there's a lot there.
So really going after my
Is that
intelligence
murder?
there, Jim. Okay, let's calm it down a little bit. All right. The Red Stag was actually a panic purchase. I will give you that. That shit. I was just in a rush, and I was just trying to get shit done at the grocery store. Grabbed the bottle because I drank it years ago. I was like, this is fine. And I didn't know that I denied opening a bottle of Red Stag that night, but that is technically true because it was open previous nights. It had been opened already, so I didn't drink a whole fucking bottle.
Okay.
You drank a lot, but not a whole bottle. Yeah.
I did drink a lot. I did drink a majority of the bottle. I will give you that.
Your denial was hilarious, though.
It was.
I have
very
not brought
funny.
myself to
Bob
listen to that
lost
because
his
I
shit.
want
What do you
to. I want to retain some love for myself, so I'm not listening to that episode.
It's pretty good.
Just
YouTube
like every episode.
That
exclusive,
was a
Randy.
really good episode.
What else was it? Oh, the Uno card. Jim actually contacted me on the Slack and brought that up, and I got to make him feel like a piece of shit because there's a real good and heartwarming reason for that tattoo, and if you want to know about it, you're gonna have to join our Slack and ask me about it. Boom.
Oh, Randy.
That's called promo.
Whoa,
hardball.
promo.
Although actually, you also got to join the YouTube because I'm gonna show it right now. Here it comes.
Uh-oh. It is on his ass.
Randy, put your gooch away.
Wrong leg.
It's right on the gooch.
Did he forget which leg his tattoo
Yeah,
was
he
on?
did.
Dog, I don't look at my leg. The back of my leg.
I don't look at my leg.
I don't look at the back of my leg every day.
Oh shit! I got a leg. There it is.
There it is. I
Look
take
at
it for
that.
granted.
I never
like
look.
a man. Anyway, so there you go.
Also, I think I like the idea of one of us like having to imbibe whatever liquor is chosen for a Patreon pick, but also like we usually record on Mondays, so
If we did,
maybe
like,
not.
we'd specifically have to time it, especially for me.
And we would
I'm usually-
specifically have
it's
to
like
charge the
9
amount for
a.m.
whatever bottle of horse shit you guys are going to make us
That's
drink.
true, actually.
So we got to bump it up to $100, you know, kind of
Yeah.
buy the good shit.
Sorry, guys. We only get Glenlivet around here and Red Stack, of course.
Yeah, or you can just buy what you want us to drink and ship it to us, and then bam.
I don't know if you can.
In Korea.
I don't know how shipping liquor works exactly.
I don't know. You just do it.
Not
I
what
don't
I
know.
You just
You
do
don't
it. Fuck
tell
them.
your
man.
UPS guy.
Yeah.
This is
Or
just
sell it with
pop.
drugs too.
Take it to where it
If-
says to
if-
take it, and that's it.
Yeah. So give me your address.
Oh,
and
don't
then
worry.
it's-
It's my urine.
Oh, okay. Don't send me any tea. That is not chill.
All right, let's go to part 2 of Jim. And
All right,
ready?
let's do
Go.
it.
Hey, fellas, G Baby again. I'll make it real quick, I promise. I remember my real dirty secret. When I was in high school, I fucking went partying, got drunk, came home. I used to leave cups of water everywhere in my room, like the little girl at Signs. So remember that. Anyway, I woke up the next morning after being super fucked up. I don't remember how I got home. I go over to the corner of my room, and I had a 13-inch TV VCR combo in one. And I noticed there was some liquid like pooled up on the top of it on the side. And I was like, what the fuck? So I figured I'd just run into, a glass of water that I had set on my entertainment center or something, and it spilled all over it. But it didn't look right. So I touched it with my fingers, and I smelled it, and it was fucking piss. It wasn't water at all. So I had thought that corner of my bedroom was actually the bathroom and the toilet, but pissed on my fucking TV. So, of course, I told my mom I just spilled some water on it or whatever. I was like 17. And then, but the worst part was, I look in the tape player, like it's built into the TV, and it's a fucking porno tape that I had. And it was like big beach bunnies with brown eyes, like 18, and you could see the label on the side of the thing. And my mom's like, oh, okay, well, we'll just, we can take it in and get it fixed or repaired or whatever. And I was like, fuck that, because as soon as you just pop open the VHS part, you can see the front label that's clearly a fucking porno. So I'm freaking out. So the only thing I could think to do was just take my fucking TV and huck it over the fence into the alley. And I just told my mom I gave it away. And then I buy a new one. So that's my dirty secret. Only a select few in my circle know that. Hope you get a kick out of it. Sorry for the double voicemail, second long voicemail. Keep chilling.
Well, that was a delight.
He threw that shit in the alley.
Started over the fence.
That's where,
don't you remember telling your mom you forgot which corner you pee in when you were 17?
Right.
Dude, which is the pee corner? Fuck. I never remember this.
Damn.
That is fucking hilarious.
That
Still
really,
a better sequel to Dr. Sleep.
That's actually pretty enlightening because there's so many piss-colored objects you just see strewn about the street in certain areas, and it's probably just the same thing. Everybody's just going through that same shit, just pissing on shit and throwing it in the alley. It's an American tradition, apparently.
He pissed on his TV. There's a porn stuck in it. He threw it over the fence into the alley.
It's quite the story.
Better
it is.
And better. Thank you for spilling your beans, Jim.
Yeah,
that is
you're the only one
fantastic.
with the cojones to do so.
That is fucking fantastic.
Well, he said that only a few people in his circle.
Only a few.
Your circle just
Not
grew,
anymore.
buddy.
Yeah.
It's more than your MySpace top 5 now, bud.
I mean, Tom still knows, but a lot of other people also know.
Tom heard about it.
Yeah, Jim, thanks, man. Hopefully somebody found that TV in the alleyway and fixed it up and found a nice little porn in there.
Just a bonus for cleaning piss out of a machine.
You just made some
You earned it.
day.
Yeah. Beach blonde bunnies or whatever the fuck you called it. 18.
I think, yeah.
Cool. So again, if you want to call and leave us a voicemail, you could do that at 904-638-3231. I don't know. Do you guys have a question that you want to pose to everybody this week? I don't have one off the top of my head.
Spill your beans again. Come on. We gotta get some more beans spilling.
Spill your steam. Tell us about
your
a
steam.
steamy story.
Tell us your steamy ass story.
Your purest,
Steam us
most
out.
steamy. Damn, dude. Steam us out.
Steam our asses out.
Steam our clams, girlfriend.
Steam our clams. Boy, this is going real bad.
Yeah. Ooh. Downward spiral.
Yeah.
Tell us some weird shit at 904-638-3231. We look forward to hearing from you. There's only one thing left to do, Justin. It's time to save a life.
Where did Bob go wrong? Worrying his friends, sifting way too long through those Blu-ray bins, and it gets worse. He'll have no jet ski, wasting all his dough on those DVDs.
I somehow forgot that we were doing this segment, and now I'm really excited. So,
yeah, we got to see. Are you
Welcome
in
to the
recovery after the shit show that was last week?
yeah. So, this is our wonderful segment where we track Bob's ever-increasing physical media collection. Bob buys a shit ton of Blu-rays. We've been tracking them over the months. Last week, Bob completely raised the bar with a 1 week total of 29, Bob. It was November 4th, and you showed us that you had purchased 29 Blu-rays. The most
You really
had
steamed our
ever,
clams last week.
Yeah,
New record.
most you'd ever purchased in a month. You did it in 4 days. So now it is November 12th, YouTube exclusive. Bob, go ahead and show us that stack.
Keep breaking records, Bobby.
Here we go. There's
Okay,
the
we got
stack.
3 for.
2, 3. All right,
We're at 32.
Bob,
Dude, I've wanted fucking Ikaru for a while. Tell me how
Yeah.
that is.
So,
Dude,
Bob, you got 3. Tell us what you got.
Yeah, so the Ikaru is a Criterion collection. I haven't watched it yet, so I can't speak to how good it is, but it's a film by Akira Kurosawa. And if you're interested in picking that up or any other Criterion stuff, they're having their half-off sale on Barnes & Noble. So you can get stuff in the store or off their website. It's all half off. So do that. I think that's going through the end of November. So you got a couple weeks to pick up some of that stuff if you want to. I also picked up a Scream Factory double feature. It's Murders in the Rue Morgue and the Dunwich Horror, which is another one of those things that's going out of print from Scream Factory. So I picked it up. I actually did watch Murders in the Rue Morgue, and it. I was thinking it was gonna like really closely follow the Poe story, and it just does not at all. It's still a murder mystery, but I was like really looking forward to watching like an orangutan murder the shit out of some people and stuff, and you don't really get that, which is kind of a bummer. Still pretty interesting film though. And then the last thing I picked up was The Collection, which is a sequel to the movie The Collector. I haven't ever seen that, and it was super cheap, and I was like, Collector was cool. Let's see what The Collection's all about. I actually think they're finally making a third in that
The Collected?
franchise. Probably.
Rob, I'm curious though. When do you think you'll actually get to those films? Because last week you purchased 29. There's no way you have watched 29 films in the past week. So how do you rotate out your viewings? Do you have like a list where you keep like have you watched that Blade trilogy from like back in August that you purchased?
You're holding on to that Blade trilogy.
Yeah. Did you watch it?
You're really it's stuck in your craw. I mean, no, I haven't watched it.
Okay, interesting.
But I have watched probably 3 or 4 of those movies that I bought last week and told you guys. I mean, there's no way I watched 29 movies in a week.
There's no way. I mean, that's ridiculous, right?
No,
it's
but
a preposterous.
I'm working through them, Dad. Jeez.
All right, yeah, we'll get
you
to
know
that
movie,
Blade
The
trilogy.
Collection. I've actually seen it, and it's just live streaming footage of you in your house hoarding your fucking DVDs.
Just stacking the new DVDs on top of each other. I'll get to him. I'll get to him. Bob just telling himself, "I'll get to you one."
He's just repeating that in the corner. Huddle.
I got a collector's brain. It doesn't have to make sense, man.
Bob, soon your walls, like Randy said, are just gonna be Blu-rays, and you can just pull the box right out from the walls. You know, you just build
That's
a
right.
house, build you a house, guy.
Yeah.
I was
Tiny
going to say, I'm
house
sitting
made
here right now. This is the only clear wall.
Oh shit, man. Rob, did
You
you
put
pull up
me
your
on
other wall?
blast,
Also, Bob,
Damn.
I told you that we were going to have to start tracking the furniture you also have to buy in order to store these Blu-rays.
And the furniture you have to get rid of as you make room for these shelves.
Have you purchased any new furniture to house all these ever-growing Blu-rays?
No, I got a free shelf, but it was free, so
Okay, free 50.
whatever. Yeah,
Fucking
free 99.
socialist.
All right.
Damn.
All right, so
Damn.
Bob, you are at 32 now. No matter what, you will have purchased more Blu-rays this month than there are days in this month. So
Yep.
sit with
Already done that. Already done that.
Already.
Surpassed.
Yeah, you'll get to them
Boy.
eventually. I'm sure of it.
Your high score is just soaring, and I couldn't be less proud of you. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Bob, do you
You
think
guys are
you'll
really
hit?
you're great.
Do you think you'll hit 50 this month, Bob? You're 18 away. You got like 2.5 weeks.
No, I don't think so. I mean, crazier shit has happened, but I don't think so.
Well,
Black
last week I
Friday's
didn't, so.
coming.
I think you're
Bob.
going to have a repeat. Yeah, because Black Friday ends
Yeah,
the
Black
month,
Friday,
and those
man.
will
And
arrive. in
Digital
December.
Dick Day or whatever they call it now.
I'll
Cyber Monday.
definitely.
Oh, that's a good. That's a good point.
I'll definitely buy some stuff on Black Friday for sure, but it's not
Yeah.
going to be.
I mean, a dude gets
You know,
gift
these-
cards, so you know.
A dude does get gift
Dude
cards.
does get gift cards. It's true, man.
We don't know which dude, but one of them does.
Some dude
Some
gets
dude.
gift cards.
That's going to do it for us this week at Straight Chilling. We're going to be back next week with a new show, as always. It's going to be a Patreon pick. We're going to be talking about, man, I don't even know how to say this. No, I'm not Japanese. Noroi? Noro? Noroi.
Noroi.
Thank you so much, Corey. What he said. It's
I didn't even know we were covering this. Sweet.
The Curse.
Yeah.
So this is chosen by our Patreon supporter, Jose. Thanks so much, Jose. It's a movie that I have never seen, don't know anything about, but it is currently on Shudder. I imagine you could probably also rent it off various VOD platforms, but it is on Shudder. I checked today. So check that out. Get ready for next week's show. Corey, thanks again for joining us this week, man. It's been
Thanks so
great.
much for having me.
Yeah, dude. Do you want to remind people where they can hire you out? Should they need a
So
photographer?
easiest place to find me, easiest place to communicate would be Instagram or my website, but KTORJUSSEN photography.
Yes. And peruse his Instagram. It's got obviously samples of your work, and it's fucking good shit.
Good shit.
Thank you,
Our
man.
our faces.
Yeah.
Our faces be on this shit. So
It's that's not the best.
that's
got
not
better.
that's not a selling point. I'm just proud. I'm just proud.
It's just hashtag facts. baby.
There's a
That's all
guy.
that
I
is.
found you. I found you,
Steamier
Corey.
photos of Straight Chilling.
Ooh, I like this.
You gonna follow me, Justin?
Yeah, I did. I just did. I got you, guy.
Steam stains over here.
Steam stains has got you.
Heck yeah. So check out NOROI. I gotta figure out how to say that before next week, that's for sure. And until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. It's a really easy way to support the show. It only takes a minute or two of your time, and it legitimately helps people find us that don't know we exist. That shit means a lot. You can hit us up on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. We're on Twitter at STRH_chilling. Send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join us on our Slack channel, hit us up on any one of those social media platforms, and I'll send you a link so that you can jump on that. We're talking about the movie of the week. We talk about Horde TV, music, news, all kinds of crazy stuff. Is like Randy's ass tattoos and whatnot.
Yep.
So that's
My
fun.
whole ass.
Whole ass. That's going to do it for us. Until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
Steam. Steam. I got nothing.
Steam stains.